Time again for Type 40 Live, the live stream magazine Doctor Who show for your weekend across your view screen on Rumble, X, YouTube, and on Facebook too. Another belter. All things Doctor Who from the way back then. Wherever it was you joined the trip of a lifetime, of course, to the right here and the right now. All with a live chat full of fellow friends, fans, and companions just like you. And coming in the air tonight, Dad Rock lives. Doctor Who lives. But now, sort of, we've got all the latest sights and sounds from the all-new too. Masses of nostalgia for the Big Who. Type 40 Live. Anything good on? Of course there is. This is Type 40 Live Night, and I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's king of the geeks. Welcome back to the channel. There's nothing like bigging yourself up, is there? Why not? Why not? It's nearly the weekend. Everybody, we'll find out who you are in a moment or two and what you've got to say about all of that and everything that's to come in the next couple of hours as well. Of course, here in the console room, I like this. I do like that. It's sort of an old school noughties monitor, isn't it? I think I even had that wallpaper on my computer, whenever that was, way back in the past. Let's see if the panel remember it too. And if they had the screensaver all the way back in 2005. Simon, do you remember the countdown screensaver?
Oh, do you know, Dan? I knew you were going to ask me that. I don't remember that at all. I do remember there were a lot of these computer things would come out at this time in 2005. They were really there were games, weren't there, and fake websites and all manner of things. So they went into overdrive on the whole sort of internet computers. But no, I don't remember. Was this a screensaver then that was out there?
You could get the wallpaper that matched the monitor that was inset into the console like that.
No, don't remember this at all. I have to say, this one's lost on me. But it's very cool. It is very cool.
Very low res in comparison to the stuff you can get now.
Of course they are.
I tell you what, there's nothing low res about your jacket, mate. It's a very striking.
Yeah, this is I think you described it as fuchsia pink. I think it probably is fuchsia pink, actually. I have to say. Well, it's spring, isn't it? Sprung has spring, I think. And so yeah. And I have to say, I've got little Lenny. Lenny's in the console room as well. He's in the house. So we've got Lenny for the night. I don't know how long we'll keep him for. But
it's been a while. Well, maybe if we can throw him a ball, I mean, because there is actually a ball set into the console.
He'd love that.
He'd throw him that.
He'd absolutely love that ball.
Whether he'd like the taste of it, I think that.
I think. Do you know what? I think he'd like the whole console. He'd have a good old go at that. You'd have fun with that, wouldn't you, pal? Because he'd run rampage over that. There'd be so many bits for him to pick up and chew.
The thing is, there's so many exposed parts. He's only got to, get caught short and take a whiz. Before you know it, the whole thing is going to go up, isn't it?
Absolutely, and nothing would stop him. I can assure you of that.
Nothing except our panelists, of course, bound to bring a sense of decorum, sense and reason to the equation. At least that's what she told me earlier on. Charlotte?
I didn't say anything of the sort, Dan Hadley. Hello,
well, you should have done.
See? You recovered from Monday yet?
People were like, "Your face, Charlotte," in the comments.
Yes, there's that too. That was a good one. Yeah. But aside from that, what a great show. What a brilliant guest Paul Hayes was as well, the writer.
No, it was fun to have somebody who'd sort of talked with sort of these names and faces that we talk about loads, but we haven't met them the same way that he had. So it was lovely to sort of hear his takes and his sort of, like I said, his experience, and then to have just that massive New Who sort of fest. I was in heaven, so I really enjoyed Monday.
It's a lot more where that came from. So yes, stay exactly where you are. There's a lot more companions to bring on too. I'm happy to say, back again and very much dressed. She looks striking, I have to say. Welcome back, Sarah.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I think the first time I've ever seen Dan actually speechless with his T-shirt is, of course, the empty child.
Oh
God,
wow!
I-
Look
The
at
thing is, I
that.
mean, where on earth?
I mean-
Where on earth? I've never seen that shirt ever. Is it a custom one?
No, it's official merch at the back. I don't know where it came from because it was a gift, but it's about 12 years old, this T-shirt. So I'm really chuffed that I can actually fit into it. So when I found out we were doing, we're celebrating New Who this week, I'm going to have to dig it out and put it on.
Got to be done.
Yeah.
It's slightly surreal from this angle. It is slightly.
Yeah,
it does
it is.
look slightly
Well,
surreal.
listen, if our views don't go up this stream, then I don't know what to tell you.
Well,
It's an
Sarah, I think
illusion.
Garbage is a fan considering what he's just put in the chat.
I need to
Yeah.
Explosive. Because in all seriousness, you used to get a lot of album covers that were like that, sort of black and white, and something stark,
Yes.
stark on them.
U2 album cover in particular. Yeah.
I'm thinking of, my God, yeah. Okay, yes. So if we can't rely on Sarah to bring back some decency to the panel, I know one fellow who absolutely will be able to bring that in spades. He accessorizes in a simpler way. In a more innocent way, I'm happy to say. And I wonder if he's got, what's he wearing this time? Gary Akers back on the show, all capped up and ready to go.
Yes, sir. Greetings from the colonies.
Good to have you back,
Yeah,
buddy.
there's no way I can follow that shirt. It just
None of us can follow that
I'm
shirt,
not
Gary.
even going to try. At first, I thought it was like a Death Star thing, but then it was. I realized, oh, that's season one.
Yeah.
That's season one.
The hair, you can't quite tell that it's the lad's hair.
I can't follow the T-shirt either, but I can. I've got a bit of an update here because the last time I was on, which was a couple of weeks ago, you might remember my little talking Dalek that was sitting just here.
Yes.
That spent 3 hours deliberately not talking. He was a very naughty boy. Well, I'm very pleased to say he's back. He is back. I've put in some fresh batteries in, and if we keep our fingers, thank you very much. And if we keep our fingers crossed. He works. He did it. He was just playing hard to get a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. We bow.
Fantastic.
Victory! Well done.
So I'm pleased to say
done.
once more for luck. There you go. So the Dalek is talking again. You'll be pleased to know.
Let's keep on coming. So yeah, we've been celebrating New Who at 20 for the last week or so. But you weren't on, were you, Simon, last week to talk about this about the console on the last edition of the show? Where do you sit on this one? Did you find it a bit of a mixed bag?
I really don't like this console. I never liked it. It's just too messy. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry. We can still be friends.
I know.
We can still be friends. No, it's just too darned messy for me. Too many bits and pieces. It's just too junk. It doesn't look like it could fly a spaceship to me. It just looks like a load of junky bits and pieces stuck on.
I think the word is gubbins. But I did want to tip the hat to Brian Hitch, who was the concept designer on the show, one of the concept designers on the show.
Oh, I remember him.
Legend,
Gosh, yeah.
Comics legend Gary, isn't he?
Yes.
Brian Hitch. So where will people know the name from?
If you are a Marvel fan, he did this comic called The Ultimates, which was basically kind of the inspiration for the MCU version of the Avengers. And he's just an extraordinarily detailed, gifted artist.
Always been one of my favorites. British, started at Marvel UK 30 odd years ago or so, but they went to him specifically because Russell was a fan of the Ultimates. I bought every issue of that as well. And this was his initial sort of scamp of how he envisaged the TARDIS. If money was no object, Gary, that was the idea. So we've got all stuff that we seen later sets, like got a split level thing going on in particular.
I always loved the split level. I mean, that's why the second Matt Smith, first Capaldi, the split level is hands down my favorite. But, you have to be careful because you run the risk then of being busy for the sake of being busy.
Yeah.
Which kind of Simon's comments kind of resonate with me with that console, because it's like things are there just to be there.
Yeah. I mean, it does look to me, Gary, and I know this is exactly what they did. They just went round, they just grabbed a load of bits and pieces, just literally junk, and put it on there. Because I remember seeing about this in Confidential. They talked through how they just basically chucked some stuff on there, a ball here, a handle there, a typewriter, keyboard there. And that's what I didn't like about it. It was too busy. For me personally, I just remember when the show came back in 2005. I am sorry, Sarah, but I was just a bit mortified at the console room as a whole. Yeah, that it never worked for me. I didn't like the color. I didn't like the gloominess of it. I didn't like the coral effect on the pillars. I didn't like the fact that it looked like the inside of a seashell. I just didn't get it. I'm sorry, Sarah. Please don't fall out with me.
I could never fall out with you, Simon.
The thing is, Sarah, what you've got to remember is when we grew up, or because we'd grown up on that pristine white console room where everything was very minimalistic, this was just such a deviation from that. That if you were in love with the original white console room, it's just a harder jump to fall in love with this one as well.
I completely get it. It's like what Charlotte was saying on Monday's show, but I didn't have any, preconceived ideas. I was coming to it new, so for me, I just thought this was wonderful, and but then going back and seeing other console rooms, I mean, I love, like you were saying, the pristineness. I mean, I love that white one. I love Peter Davison's console room.
Yeah.
But actually, my favourite is that McGann's.
Oh, yeah.
It's just weird, yeah. But I mean, I've got such a soft spot for this one, obviously, because it was my first one.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to make of it at the time. The first time I saw it in that trailer we looked at the other night, Charlotte. Again, like everything, I think I spoke about this on Monday's show. Everything about it, I couldn't take it in, and it was the same with the TARDIS set, for exactly the same reasons as Simon described, and yet I came to love it pretty quick.
Well, yeah, and it's something I thought about after the Monday show, is how, like, we're talking about Chris's costume and his doctor on that show, and actually his costume really looked out of place in this TARDIS, like looking back now, because this is a very alien in bits to me still, very sort of natural, what you guys have spoke about, all those themes, and then he's got his leather jacket.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Really good point.
When he was stood about in it in scenes, they almost clashed. And also as a kid, I don't think I picked that up as much. But now when I think about certain scenes, it's like he almost doesn't fit in his own TARDIS. Which is interesting for your doctor to sort of not match, because that's what they did a lot. Then
I think it fits. I think it fits perfectly, precisely because of that. Because I think with the jacket being all beaten up, it's as if like the jacket has gotten as beaten up as it has because he's been sort of underneath all that sort of metal and all the wrought iron. It's kind of been scraped around a bit. He doesn't really care.
Yeah, I think the wornness, I agree completely, but I just think because the costume was so realistic to what a human almost wear.
Yeah, good point.
It was bloke down the pub kind of outfit.
Yeah, you put that next to these very alien aspects of that console. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I just sort of realised it after the fact that when we were chatting, I was like, actually, there was that weird almost not matchingness, which actually makes it quite interesting in scenes to see now.
It's interesting because I can see David Mullen has just put in the chat that the room looks like an engine room. That's a really interesting point, actually. It does actually look a bit like an engine room.
And I always saw Eccleston's doctor there. And I think that doesn't Captain Jack mention that he's dressed like a U-boat captain later on?
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
A submarine captain or something said.
And that would go with that sort of engine room look, wouldn't it?
See, it always made sense to me because it is literally full of junk. It is because he's on his own. Is this survivor? He's just going through time and space, picking up, what he might need. He's got the bicycle pump to replace something because that's all.
Yeah, I like that.
Jerry rig. So I think for Eccleston's doctor in particular, I think it fits, like kind of his backstory in a way, probably
you
better
can
than the
see-
Tenant Doctor.
You can see that the template to it is there in the present day as well, as we're now all these years on, 2 decades on, and yet with so many of the same production team coming back to the show, it's still present. The basic shape is still sort of there. It's just been inflated as the budget has been inflated. On screen, we can see the first of the new series Doctors alongside the current model, Christopher Eccleston and Ncuti Gatwa, both with a distant look in their eye on this fantastic piece of fan art from Matthew Purchase. This poster that's up on this is up on X there at the Cyber Devil. So yeah, go and say hi to Matthew. I really like this bit. But looking at the two actors there side by side, well, in some ways so much has changed, and yet in others not so much. So yeah, funny business. So it's all been about New Who at 20 this week, not just in the fan community, but in the media as well. The sort of the geeky press, the geeky websites and things like that, and places like Radio Times have been all over this. So what do you think the temperature has been like? Because we spoke not that long ago really about the 60th anniversary, and we all spoke privately about this date, the 26th of March 2025, 20 years of New Doctor Who. Is it really worth acknowledging, never mind celebrating so soon after the 60th anniversary of actual Doctor Who? Is this a step too far? I mean, what's been your gauge of it, Sarah? Do you think that it's made an impact this time?
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, obviously, I'm not as present on social media as some of other people, but I've noticed a lot of posts on Facebook. I've noticed a lot of stuff on YouTube. In fact, the Doctor Who channel yesterday, I don't know if you saw, they were live streaming the best moments of Series 1. And I think the stream lasted something like an hour and a half. And it's literally just scenes from Rose all the way through to the parting of the ways and then regenerating. And I got sucked into watching that. But I also think, I don't want to put a cloud on it, but I think because the 60th was such a disappointment, I think this has been like the shot in the arm that some fans have needed. Perhaps, things might not have been as, publicised if, the 60th had been. I don't want to say it wasn't a success, because, I mean, we did have some good things, some good celebrations.
It was successful. I think it was the aftertaste that was somewhat bitter.
Yeah.
Whereas this feels like, because we know what we're celebrating. We're not celebrating something before the fact. We're sort of celebrating it or sort of deciding how we wish to mark the occasion very much after the fact, Gary. I mean, what's been your perception where you are and from what you've seen? How do you think this anniversary has made its way out through fandom and into the mainstream, if at all?
Well, personally, I've actually enjoyed seeing a lot of the Eccleston clips come up in my Facebook feed the last couple of weeks, and just various scenes and coverage from like the Radio Times magazines. It seems like that I think that there's more to celebrate with the 20th anniversary of New Who than the 60th. The 60th was more, I think, just a callback to the first Russell T Davies era. It wasn't the celebration of 60 years of the show. I mean, I know this may be blasphemy, but I think there was more celebration of the legacy of the show in Jodie's finale with all the appearances of the past Doctors.
I do see what you mean.
And that rather than the anniversary specials, which were confined to New Who, the first 4 seasons.
And I suppose in hindsight, Gary, 2023 was loaded up with that extra expectation that we all had of that it was this sort of drastic relaunch and retrieval mission, in a sense, to sort of save the brand. So there was a lot more resting on it, I think, outside of it being a celebration.
I think the desire of the fan community and maybe the public was they wanted to have a big celebration for the 60th, but then we kept getting the rug pulled out from us with things like the Walking Davros and
we
problems
did.
with the Star Beast and stuff. But I think that there's always the desire for people to celebrate the best of Who, and it seems like the last couple of weeks it's been that. I would think that on the flip side, the double-edged sword is, you know, as Sarah was just saying, when we're kind of saturated and marinated in the best of New Who, I'm not sure that that's going to do, you know, and putting those basically front burner in everybody's minds now, reminding them of what they've loved. I'm not sure that's going to do season 2 any favors.
I have loved seeing just this publicity fit picture and other such items again. This was the very first proper image I ever saw from the production. And I'll never forget it. I saw it at kind of low resolution in a newspaper, but I immediately sort of stopped turning. There was no Dalek in it, no TARDIS in it, but those two actors who I'd never seen anything before, I'd worked out that must be the Sonic he was holding. What are those strange glyphs, patterns in the background? I was so excited. You know, as a graphic designer, immediately, never mind the fact that they are there in character. It all looked so promising. It was another reason to be optimistic, Charlotte.
Yeah, and I think, though, we've now got a lot more context about the actors, actually, during this series, with Chris now, in the last couple of years, actually talking about his experiences and his struggles and sort of what it was like for him. And I think that's that's grown love for his Doctor again, because we now understand actually he was battling a lot himself, his own demons, but he could still act as well as he could and give us this character as well as he did on screen. And I think that's just made people want to go back to his Doctor more. So this is the perfect opportunity for people to sort of revisit his era. And I think, to be fair, I've not just seen for his stuff, I've seen it for other Doctors, people sort of revisiting. And I think it's this thing of, I think New Who, because of the last couple of eras, they've been so turbulent, to put it lightly.
Yeah,
I think
divisive and turbulent.
I think people have just wanted to go to eras of New Who that still hold love and still hold sort of resonance with them. So I think if you're like me and Matt's your Doctor, it's been fun just to revisit that Doctor for a bit for yourself, because you can go back to that time. You can sort of, and I think that's what I've loved about it. New Who is, for once, is being celebrated for good reasons.
All those years ago, from a simple moment and just one word, run. That's all he said, and the nation, we did. Take a look at this.
I'm the Doctor, by the way. What's your name?
Rose.
Nice to meet you, Rose. Run for your life.
Moment after moment.
Backwards or forwards in time? Where do you want to start?
Is it always this dangerous?
Yeah. Stay here, fill your life with work and food and sleep, or you could go anyway.
You can go back and see days.
I love all that. I love the ding.
100,000 sunsets a day. No wonder you never stay still.
Not a bad life.
Better with two.
Welcome to the end of the world. That's not supposed to happen.
Sarah?
Yeah.
I saw the fall of Troy, World War V. Now I'm going to die in a dungeon. In Cardiff.
The Doctor is a legend woven throughout history. When disaster comes, he's there. He brings the storm.
With the mouth.
He is a more constant companion.
God, that really out of fantastic.
Yes.
Death.
You could hear the bone.
I'm going to find my friends. And then I'm going to find you.
Off we go into time and space.
No one on this base is safe. No one on this planet.
That's impossible. They were destroyed.
Obviously, they survived.
I've come to help. I'm the Doctor.
Wow.
Oh, look, I got goosebumps watching that.
Very good at it.
A shiver right now.
Yes.
Absolutely electrifying.
I had this. Do you know, they did a poster of this at one of the first bits of merch that they ever did. I remember I
I've got
ended up buying two. I did end up giving one to my nephews, but
It's amazing.
If I hear the Eurythmics from now on, I'll think of Doctor Who.
Yeah, it just looked so fresh back in those days. It looked like it was a fresh start. They really had reinvented Doctor Who, and they'd done a cracking job on it. I think the thing that surprises me, in all honesty, with this being the 20th anniversary week, is that if anything, there is so little about, because okay, it's been on social media and we've seen it, and all the Doctor Who websites are all posting about it, but it just actually surprises me. You know, when I think back to the 20th anniversary week in 1983. You know, and it was just a massive thing, and we'd got the 5 Doctors, which was just so exciting to get. And so, actually, I think it's a shame that there hasn't been more on BBC to mark the fact that this is 20 years since the show came back. And I can't help thinking that had the 60th anniversary and had the first gap to a season being a massive success, and if Doctor Who was riding high, I think it actually would have got. I think you'd have had a lot more on television about this. I think this would have been.
You don't think it's an either or situation, like with the 60th and everything?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is, Dan. I think that New Who is fully deserving of its own anniversary. I do. I think because however much it is a continuation of the original series, it's still very much its own beast. And I think New Who totally deserves having its own celebration of 20 years. And no, not necessarily having sort of the equivalent of the 5 Doctors on television or anything like that. But I'm surprised that we haven't had a couple of documentaries on BBC4 or something like that, just something to mark it. And apart from social media, there's been nothing. And as I say, I do fear that it's an indication of the lack of appetite for Doctor Who at the moment, because I think otherwise
they put a repeat on Tom Baker's "This Is Your Life" instead. I mean, Sarah's quite right about those live streams that they do on the Doctor Who YouTube channel, but they don't seem to get that many people watching them. I mean,
I've not been in one, but it comes up on like my suggested a lot. So I have a glance at how many people are watching them. And I think the last one I saw, I don't think it was the one Sarah was talking about, but they do them quite regularly. It had about 300 people watching it.
A channel with 1 million subscribers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really, like about 300 odd. It was that range. And even I was like, wow, that shows.
You wonder why they go to the length to put them all together. I mean, it's not going to be quick and easy to put a compilation show like that together to screen to 300 people. It's an odd thing.
They will watch it after the fact. There is this official new poster graphic as well, nicely setting the Doctor and Rose from 2005 there with their logo and their font, surrounded by those that have come since. I think this is quite nicely done. This is the only version I've seen of it at any rate. So this does look to be like the only official piece of sort of merchandise and promotion that's out there. but I think it nicely evokes the time and celebrates everybody that's come along since. It's something, if not necessarily being everything.
Matt Smith's too small. He should be.
I didn't want to say that as the most fan, but Sarah said it for me, so I'm happy.
It is a bit. He's a bit small for somebody who had the major global impact, isn't it?
It's not. I'm actually quite disappointed that. So that's the only professional piece. I'm sure there's plenty of Doctor Who fans out there that have done better.
There's
pieces.
lots. We're going to see some of it later on, in fact. But as regards something new, I mean, this is something to scroll through, isn't it? Maybe it was done in haste. Maybe they didn't realise that they had a potential occasion here that people would wish to mark.
Oh no,
because,
I'm sorry, Dan. It's the same production team. They fully knew. Like
my favourite image is still this one, of course, of the classic billboard, Charlotte.
Wow.
Yeah, but I can understand. I can sort of see both sides to what Simon said. Obviously, officially, they've not done a lot. Like BBC haven't. But then I think about all the success sort of stuff we've had celebration-wise, and that was all fan-created stuff, the watch-alongs. That was fans that started those. And they got a lot of momentum, and they actually were really good fun at times. So a bit of me thinks, when it comes to this sort of stuff, I think it's probably better that it's more of a grassroots fans celebrating.
Left to the fans to come together the way, you know what, you could be right. It seems to be the people handling the brand, the people who own it, the ones who are making it divisive.
Yeah, exactly. Like they don't seem to be able to sort of be a. Russell in 2005 could talk to fans, and he was very good at it, and he could be sort of get the celebration going himself. He was sort of this ringmaster. We've said that to him before about Russell in that era. And now I just think he's too driven by his own ego and politics. Yeah. So it's going to be fans who are going to naturally go back and celebrate and just want to talk. Because at the end of the day, we just want to talk about stories we love. And that's what a celebration should be, really, I would think.
We've got this quote, very brief mention here from Russell T Davies over on his Instagram. He simply said 20 years old today. On the big day itself, on the 26th, happy birthday, new Doctor Who, and drop some hashtags, and that was that, which is something. It's better than nothing.
It's not very like him, though, is it? Considering all the stuff he comes out with for the new series. This is magnificent. This is going to be the bestest thing ever. It's going to be the great. Seems
tame.
Yes.
Yeah, I think as an antidote to the tame, we should head over to the live chat on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X, because that'll definitely bring the balance. There's nothing tame about our lot.
This is the Time 40 podcast. You will be exterminated.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us so far on yet another celebration edition of Type 40 Live here, marking 20 years of New Who. Whether you scoff at the notion or not, we're doing it anyway. Tame, Russell T Davies, Tame, says Stephen Braddock. Good to see you, Stephen.
Oh, Stephen, I love your avatar. Is that what have you drawn
great.
that?
Yeah, that's his artwork.
Oh,
It's so good.
Doing that a lot lately. We've got Domgo in the live chat as well. Happy birthday and death day to Doctor Who.
Covers all bases, Domgo.
Bring the black pill. Terrified Monk says Russell T Davies was so much better when he had to answer to people. There could be some truth in. There could be some truth in that. I think it does bring out the best. I think it challenges all of us in whatever we're doing, doesn't it? We've got Neville in the live chat too. We've got Peter Harrington in the live chat. I have the walkie-talkie Slovenia 9 boxed, but the arm is broken. Oh, I only just found out why a few weeks ago. It was, YouTube videos told him that it was a poor mixture in the plastic that made it. I've got that set as well. I hope my arms are still on. Still off.
You'll have to check.
I'll go and check, isn't I? Could be in trouble. Vanessa has joined us as well and says, I notice all of the Russell T Davies doctors are in the front. Typical. You're talking about that piece of that new poster.
Oh, that's
we were
right,
looking
yeah.
at, aren't you? Are they? I well,
yes,
they are.
Very astute, Vanessa.
And they're quite bigger than the other three.
Capaldi's pretty big as well, but I mean, somebody's got to. I've got no excuse for this. Actually, the others. Well, Matt Smith should be bigger. Do what they want with the chick, as far as I'm concerned. So much advertising of the show back then. Remembers TARDIS travels, unlike today. There's a reasonable amount of advertising now. I think the nature of advertising has changed now. Why there aren't more billboards around? Heaven knows.
I do. Those billboards were very, very exciting. It has to be said. To see those on the street was just beyond exciting. I remember even stopping my car to take a photo of it. In fact, as I recall, Sarah, I think because this is in the days, obviously 20 years ago, before cameras took many photos. So I remember actually taking my camera out with me so that I could stop somewhere to take a photo. I've still got it. I've still got the photo that I took at the end of my street of that billboard because it was just beyond exciting.
So did TARDIS Travels here on YouTube. And
was that ever released as a poster? That should have been a poster.
Not that I'm aware of. And we didn't even mind the TARDIS doors opening the wrong way, did we?
I can remember, Dan. I remember that the penny dropping with that. I can't remember whether I worked it out myself or whether I'd seen it somewhere that the doors open the wrong way. And it's one of those things. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And you're like, "Don't! How could they do that?" But it didn't matter. We were just
Highland saw.
Yeah. Likewise, Fly Highland's first image I saw as well. It's just so exciting.
Heretic says, I don't think we've seen any documentaries because Russell T Davies has drunk too much Kool-Aid and cannot be trusted to say things not to peer everybody. Well, other people can, let's be fair, other people can speak on it in 20 years. Other people have been involved. Several hundreds of people have also been involved in making Doctor Who over the last 20 years. Let's be fair. Eurythmics' 1984 soundtrack is fantastic. Yep. I agree. Anything from the 80s is absolutely fine by me. In fact, we'll be coming to that later on as well. David Mullins says, I recall the first merchandise was stationery, ring binders, notepads, pens, followed by that Slovene Dr. Walkie-Talkie thing. Yeah, I bought them all. Stationery was quite easy to turn around, I think, wasn't it? Because they just have a word with the people who make them.
I remember there was the remote control Daleks that came with a 9th Doctor figure. That were one of the first things I had. I think, was that the first year?
Yes, I bought that as well.
Because they really didn't think it was going to be a hit, did they? Because I remember it taking ages for like the merch to come out. There really wasn't a lot.
They weren't geared up for it, Sarah. Whether they weren't ready for the furore that surrounded the series, they just weren't anticipating it to be that successful.
People are recounting their favourite moments, not just from that trailer that we played a moment ago, that fantastic fan-edited trailer there, but from everything else they remember about Series 1 in particular. So we have, I think we're doing our bit to bring the celebration here in the live chat. Darren Bradley said it was great seeing BBC Wales report the first day of location filming. Yeah, and that footage, that report, did make its way out to the broader BBC as well. So we saw clips of that in a sort of package. And it was also up on the website as well, so you could play it, albeit kind of low resolution way. So I think that was the first instance really of a combination of efforts from across the BBC to get all the Doctor Who stuff in one place, but in a way that they couldn't or wouldn't. The idea would never occur to them to do that with other shows.
Well, no, Doctor Who has always been such, hasn't it, that it just has inspired merchandise, and it works. It does work with regards to merchandise. It's a very merchandisable, marketable show, and in many ways, it's surprising that they were, as Sarah says, so slow off the mark with merchandising for this, because they must have known behind the scenes as they were making this that it must have seemed to be working to them behind the scenes. They must have been reasonably confident that they'd done a reasonably good show. So it is surprising, actually, that the BBC weren't quicker off the mark to come out and say, you know, we need to get some merchandisers on board with this, and just get something in the shops ready for the spring of 2005 when the show starts. It's remarkable now to think about it that they were that slow off the mark.
Maybe it was a tough sell, because I wouldn't say that the show's reputation was mud then, but there was that cynicism. There was. I can see why people who would eventually buy licenses would be slow to pull the trigger because if it was like an 8 to 12 week wonder and then gets bumped to later on, you know, then they're screwed, aren't they? They're left with notepads, action figures that they can't shift. This picture of David Tennant there in the base of a Dalek, like a kid in a sweet shop. It's
not real. It almost looks like it's been photoshopped into me.
No, it's absolutely genuine. Us old fans were expecting the worst. Says Duncan Evans.
Yeah, it's
Duncan
true.
the Funky Evans. Yeah. We were, and that did continue though. This default setting of Doctor Who fans to always think and fear the worst. You know, obviously the change of showrunners exacerbated that. Okay, it's been successful once, but he's bound to cock it up, isn't he? And this guy's far too young, isn't he, Charlotte? All that stuff. We have never, in this entire 20 years, we've never once sort of rested in a sense of security as a fan base. It's been terrible. The whole thing's been terrible.
I think the problem was Tennant was such this, like, at the time, like, the king's fallen, long live the king, like, that was the sentiment. And then they pick a youngster that's pretty much an unknown, which I think he works well because he had an odd look, but I can see sort of the more casual people going, well, we've just had a good looking chap, now we've got this guy. And that was a risk. And I think now, we've said this before, because he did so well, it's forgotten. Almost, it's sort of become this, it didn't happen. When actually at the time, I can remember having quite a few mates who would I had to convince them. I had to say, no, give him a chance. Just give him an episode. He's not Tennant. He's very clearly a different actor they're going for. But that's what worked because they leaned into his differences. And I think that's what people sort of were like, oh, if they didn't like the romantic.
I was worried, Charlotte, that the general audience would leave it. That was my biggest. I was antsy because of his age and stuff like that. But of course, those things are out of my control. But I was worried that the general audience would leave it. And that's something that's never really left me. I always wanted the general audience to be part of it. The TARDIS Zone, our friend Noel Glynn, he's in the live chat, and he says we were very lucky. Chris, David, Matt, and Peter, all great doctors in their own way. And there's a lot of sentiment like that in the live chat.
And I think as well, you've got to remember, like, you guys were used to regeneration. You'd had your doctors change. Me and Sarah, like the people our age, this whole idea of just getting used to an actor and then they're going and you have to sort of almost accept a new guy. Like, it was such a weird idea.
It was devastating. I cried when Chris went, and I was like, "Oh, the hell is this skinny little?"
Well,
obviously, it grew on me, you know. But it was hard time.
Well, remember for Matt Smith, for me, you know, when I saw the Doctor Who magazine cover, you know, the Matt Smith is the Doctor cover, where I think it was kind of dark and he was in the alley and he was wearing the kind of blackish, if you remember the Simon that cover.
I remember that.
And, you know, my first reaction was, okay. But then I don't know if it was a month or two later, that first behind the scenes shot where you saw Matt and Karen sitting on the steps of that trailer, and he had the I guess between shots, and he had the bow tie and everything, and that's the first time you saw him kind of in his complete outfit, and you went, okay, that's perfect.
Well, yeah, because with Matt, they, like I said, they leaned into all this sort of uniqueness, which I think in another time they could have not, but they're like, no, he's clearly an old soul. He's clearly old man again in a young man's body. Let's give him tweed. Let's give him that sort of geography teacher sort of, or that sort of man out of time look.
I think what I've sort of learnt from the last 20 years as a old school Doctor Who fan and for a time, like a lot of Doctor Who fans, Simon, I thought I knew it all. But watching, because this new Doctor Who isn't my Doctor Who. My Doctor Who finished in 1989. I've loved most of New Who. I sincerely have. But I think the acceptance that this was actually my children's Doctor Who, that was necessary for me to accept that, to fully appreciate the things that I was seeing and the context that I was seeing them in. And so to see, just as Charlotte says, for them to, because these things that and I think that we sometimes as a fandom, we speak about the format, the character, as almost being unbreakable. And you can do that. They're so flexible. You can do this. You can do that. And some of that, it's only true up to a point. The format is only so flexible up to a point, as that Muppet Chris Chibnall found out, and we're all still paying the cost of that. But the character's the same too. It's kind of like a graphic equalizer. So I think there's little bars, and you can turn each of them up in relation to one another and alter those settings. And generally speaking, you'll get the same sort of waveform come out. But if those settings go wildly off, then it's simply not the same character anymore. And for the most part, during New Who, they have, and I think this is a lot of it has been down to the initial crop of actors they've chosen, is that their instincts were so in line. They'd seen something in that character, and I don't know whether they worked with other people to get there, their agents or whatever. I thought, okay, there'd been some sort of moment where they go, right, I can do it like that. And maybe there was some tinkering after the fact, but it was a natural tinkering and an evolution of those characters. I think they've all, the first four have certainly evolved. And as long as I can see, and it's the same with McCoy, really, because I've always said that they could have picked better than Sylvester McCoy. We all know that, but they could always have they've got to have picked a damn sight worse. And they could have picked somebody who wasn't prepared to put the work in to find that character like Sylvester did. And I think that's when it works. That's why it works now. And you can put, when Tom Baker says the part is actor proof, I think that's what he means. I don't think he means literally actor proof. We know that's not true, but I think that's what he's referring to. That if an actor is sighted on the character, then there's no reason why they can't be successful.
I think the thing is with Doctor Who, we've said before that it's lightning in a bottle. It's a very, very, very clever format. That you're right, Dan. You're almost tempted to think, okay, with that format, it's such a clever format, you can't go wrong with it. Which actually is correct, because it's very, very easy to go wrong with Doctor Who. It is, and I think your analogy of the graphic equalizer is perfect. Actually, you sort of mix those ingredients together, and sometimes it's going to come out right, and sometimes it's not. And it is very easy to screw up what is a genius format. What I think is interesting is in the first. Well, we could debate for the next 20 years about how many of those first years are largely correct. I would certainly say to the end of the David Tennant years, those are largely correct. They mostly get the mix right, I think, in those. And when you look at it, it's remarkable how many times they do actually get it right. And I think in the first season, in the Eccleston season in particular, it's easy now for us to look back 20 years later in hindsight and say, oh yeah, they got it so right, they did this right, they did that right, this was a good episode, that's a good episode. What we forget in all of that is that, of course, they made that entire season in effect with their eyes closed. They didn't know, as I've just said 10 minutes ago, they must have had sort of some inkling that they were possibly getting it right, but there is no. I don't feel there's any sense of smugness through that first season at all. They were very much flying by the seat of the pants. They were doing what they felt was right,
I see what you mean.
And they must have had an inkling that it was. I don't believe that they couldn't have sort of filmed for 9 months or however long they filmed for and got to the end of it and thought, no, I really don't know whether we've got this right, folks. No, I think they had a reasonably good idea that they were producing something good, but it was still made completely blind. It was certainly written blind. They had no idea when Russell T Davies largely was writing that first season on his own. He had no idea whether what he was doing was going to work or not. He was absolutely working blind, and that's where I absolutely do take my hat off to him and the whole production team, that they had the confidence and they had the vision to go for it without any degree of confidence whatsoever that what they were doing would work or would just fall flat on its face.
Like that, yeah.
And you forget that. You forget that. So you have to take your hat off to them for that. They did an amazing job of just carrying through. Must have been tough to get up every day and think, are we actually doing anything here that people will like? And or will it just be, will it be compared so much to the classic series and everybody will rubbish it and we'll forever end up with egg on our faces? You know, you have to hand it to them. Take my hat off to them for that.
No, I agree. Gary, how long was it in between the British premiere and it being shown in America? Because I know there was a gap, wasn't there? I know it was a few months, is my instinct, but I can't quite remember. And had word reached you that it was safe to look?
Well, I was getting, from my local comic shop or subscription, the magazine. So I was following kind of the lead up to it.
Yeah.
But there wasn't, and I know that when in Tennant's era, that's when it went to the Sci-Fi Channel. But I think my first exposure to Eccleston was all of a sudden one night, and I knew the Doctor Who was coming. I didn't know when. I was flipping around on a local PBS station, and there it was. It was like the Slovene episode, which probably was not the ideal one start, because I'm going, what is this?
We all were, Gary.
And all of a sudden it's like, wow. I mean, I literally did not even know that it was going to make its way to America then. And it got formalized when it was on the Sci-Fi Channel for the Tennant stuff. And then with Matt Smith, then it moved to BBC America, and then they took it and ran with it. But I think it was about a year's difference. Dan, correct me in the chat, please, if I'm wrong.
Were you ever offered the bootleg of the first couple of episodes?
No.
Because it did leak, didn't it? Rose leaked. I was offered it, but I was a good boy. I said the other day, didn't I, Charlotte? I resisted, Sarah. I didn't take the.
I did not have.
That was very good of you.
I did not get any phone calls with the code on the other end telling me where to meet them. To get the brown paper bag with the grease spot underneath.
It was like that.
That didn't happen this time.
I was offered it. I do remember that story breaking. Am I right in remembering it was the week before, just 5-6 days?
I think it was longer than a week.
Was it longer than that?
I think it was between a week and 10 days. It was a good chunk of time. Could
have been. But certainly I remember being offered the episode and I was like, no, I absolutely want to see this, as I meant to see it, as opposed to on some dodgy copy in poor quality. So unfortunately for me, the bad part was I never actually got to see Rose go out live anyway, because I was at a wedding. I was at a wedding, and I just remember that the so many people at this wedding were like, I cannot believe your wedding is on the day that Doctor Who is back on television. So many people were gutted. You wonder now why they didn't just put a big screen up and play it in the reception, because they might as well have done it, because we were all absolutely itching to see it. So that was frustrating. So waited that long. Yeah, absolutely. That's how I felt. To have waited that long and then be denied and know it was transmitting and I was dancing to YMCA or something like that.
How inconsiderate of them to plan.
Can you imagine it, Gary?
Very. I've been very scornful of not just the price increase of the Radio Times in the last few years, up to $5 now. You know, it's the days of me buying this on the weekly are long gone. The days of me watching TV are long gone. But I have enjoyed the enthusiasm, again, just like you said, Charlotte, from the grassroots fan base for these covers. People have, I mean, Radio Times have had a nice payday out of this, but fans have really enjoyed picking up, choosing their issue and photographing it, putting it on social media and saying why they chose it or what they could find. Luke was quite right with what he said on Monday Night Show. I think that you'll have a few completists 10, 12 years ago for the 50th. There was a lot of completists who were buying everything, including me. That's not the case now. But I think this has been fun for people, and I think the Radio Times have not let us down in this respect.
Well, no, but I also think it's more personal. Like, when it's a 50th, it's more about celebrating the Hall of Who. It's about being a fan of the whole of it, and I think actually why it's clever they did it with the Doctors in that way is, like I said, it's that personal thing of I'm not going to buy them all. Like you said, people don't do that as much. So which Doctor means the most to me? Mm-hmm. Which Doctor have I got that emotional connection to? And like we all say, we all love the character of the Doctor, but we all have our Doctors. Yeah. And it's very much situated about maybe what your life was like at that point when you watched that episode with the Doctor, and that's why you connected with that Doctor. Or there was a certain thing with the actor that you just sort of... it's him. That we all have that sort of moment, and that's what I think what is lovely about this, and that's what I can see why fans have done that, taken pictures and explained, because also they're all different. The Doctors, we all see different things and things we love. So that's what I mean. I think this has been on the whole. I think we needed as a fan base and as fans to almost just take away all the noise that's happening right now, take away all the heat, and just sort of center ourselves onto what do we love? What do we want to celebrate? What do we want to talk about and sort of get that back in our heads? Because I think we can be guilty at losing that at times. And this has been a brilliant way to sort of go back to something a bit more, like that connection, the idea of connection again and what the show means to us.
Yeah. But it certainly has for me, Charlotte, because I've been pretty down with Doctor Who with recent developments, but this past couple of weeks, I mean, with the stuff with Graham Harper as well, we celebrated his birthday. It's just bringing back the joy.
Yes,
in the fandom rather than the moaning and the groaning, and which is as its place as well. I mean, God knows I've needed my therapy as much as the next person, but reminding ourselves why we're here, what brought us all together.
Yeah. And it's unhealthy to remain in that place indefinitely or to keep going back there. That's something we very much resist here at Type 40 Live, even though we've never pulled any punches and we never will. We're not about to clamber into a hole and stay there. We are Doctor Who fans who enjoy making this show and enjoy communicating with you guys out there in the live chat too. The Radio Times will have made a few quid off the back of this, but I've got to be fair to them. On the 28th of March, they're putting this out for free. So this is a Radio Times, The Doctors, the new series Doctors, classic interviews and photography. The little corner flash there says the inside story on the Doctor Who revival, Radio Times digital special. So it's not available in print as a hard copy. This is just an ebook kind of format. But if it's anything like the Tom Baker one they put out a few months ago, this would actually be a very memorable, high quality item. It includes it says it charts the journey here from the modern era of Russell T Davies' bold revival to the very latest adventures, interviews with every modern Doctor, insights from the showrunners, set reports, archive features, iconic photo shoots, and rare behind-the-scenes imagery too. So that's all in there. The Radio Times, The Doctors special, completely free, available digitally from Friday the 28th of March. Can't really argue Can't really argue with that.
The pictures of Matt and Peter on that cover are fantastic.
Yeah,
He's got a bit of like a thing with his hair, Matt.
Matt has that.
yes,
Matt
I
has
love
that
that.
like too cool for school look.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
on him.
Danny Zuko.
Yeah,
The Doctor.
yes.
The Doctor is a hair part, according to the great Paul McGann, of course. So who are we to disagree? We wouldn't give the Doctor any lip. We give him some lippy. Give him the lippy logo if you like, Paul. There you go. That's just for you. The lippy logo for all new Doctor Who season 2 that's about to be visited upon us in just over a couple of weeks' time, I think it is. We were talking about this before we came on. So 2 and a bit weeks as of time of recording, whether we're ready or not. We try to be as ready as we can here at Type 40 and Type 40 Live with podcasts, live streams, extras, everything across the socials, whatever it is that we're doing. And yeah, believe me, we're looking at that calendar and we're as frightened as you are. But, it's just a friendly logo after all. So yeah, where next? More comments, please. We'll have some more of that, more memories. Thank you, everybody who's joined in so far. We've got a lot to get stuck into, more celebrations, more reminiscing, and lots more silly banter as well. You'll be pleased to learn. Well, you might be pleased, but you might not.
Hello and welcome. I will be off saving the universe, but while I am doing that, make sure you listen to, what was that, Chesterfield? Type 40. Yes.
Great.
Bless him. Okay, yes, so someone's getting all upset because it's not about him. Handbags in, everybody, in case he starts crying. You know how it gets. So yes, let's be visited by the giant space anus for a little while. There, it's coming, whether you like it or not. Yeah. So a few days ago, we got new episode titles, everybody, for all of the incoming series. Those 8 episodes there. I think results are going to vary on all of those. Some people are excited, some people are confused, some people are nonplussed, and others are just left completely cold. No judgment from us on any of that. We all do what we do, however we do it, and we respond in the way that we do, don't we? So, yeah, let us know what you think, of course, in the comments about the titles as we proceed on. But yeah, we're getting closer to Saturday, the 12th of April. This week, yet more has sort of floated around, and it was the turn of Disney Plus this time to premiere some new bits and pieces. So, the posters so far, they came out about 3 weeks ago, and they have started appearing in bus shelters and things like that. These posters left a lot of us cold, particularly the one featuring Varada Sethu there as Belinda. It's like she's waiting for a bus, or she's touching cloth. It doesn't look very comfortable, does it? It's not as inspiring as you would like. But we do have some brand new key art on a poster this week from Disney Plus, and they launched this a few days ago with the date. Brand new key art, a new tagline: "Get her home," and the simple figure of the Doctor and his new companion with the TARDIS in the background there, pointing towards the sky, backed by a fabulous moon. Yes, so this is absolutely everywhere now. The promotional circuit is up and running. Disney have got it plastered all over their website. Disney Plus unveils otherworldly Doctor Who Season 2 trailer. The countdown begins, they say. So, let's have your thoughts about this. I think this is striking and different to anything that we saw last year. What are your thoughts? I mean, I know you're not terribly keen at the moment, Simon, but as a designer, as a bit of illustration, as a bit of publicity, had you seen this?
Well, yes, I'd seen it because, as you say, it's all over social media, so can't really avoid it. I think it's okay. It doesn't horrify me. It doesn't leave me cold. The thing that really strikes me with it, and do forgive me for this, but it looks like a Disney poster. It's exactly the kind of thing I would expect Disney to put out. It looks a bit like, a sort of a Winnie the Pooh meme that I might see on social media or something. But do you know what I mean?
It's a branch blowing in the wind. The thing that it reminded me of instantly, Sarah, being an animation guy, was the Nightmare Before Christmas.
There we go. That's possibly what I'm thinking of.
I was just going to say that. Yes, that's what.
Have I just taken the words out of your mouth?
Yeah, but it's fine. It means we're in sync. That's good.
And maybe that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking of, and that's sort of what it reminds me of.
It's not a bad thing. Great movie, great poster, great image.
Yeah. But it just looks like it. As I say again, this isn't necessarily criticism, but it looks like a Disney poster. That's exactly what I would expect from Disney. Which I say, I genuinely don't mean that as a criticism. It's the kind of thing that they do. It's that sort of feel, isn't it?
It's not breaking any molds. Charlotte?
Well, yeah, my first thought was, God, this feels like a throwback, like classic in that fact of nowadays posters are very clearly computers sort of driven with the graphics and how they almost position everything. It feels like a computer. This feels more like when posters used to be a bit more artistic driven, how they would do them. And it's nice that sort of Shooty is sort of being portrayed there as like the leading figure, sort of looking away forward. I like that as like a Doctor image. I just, once again, though, she's just looking into space, doing nothing. Why are we doing this constantly with this companion?
Yeah, it's not doing any favours.
Like, she needs to have some promotion art where she's actually active. I'm sorry, I just don't get why this seems to be a theme now.
It's Disney Plus and iPlayer now, double bubble with the same basic artwork. There were no variation at all, but with the added strapline, "Get her home." I think that's meant to do a lot of that kind of heavy lifting.
Yeah. But it does it. But not future. I'm going timey-wimey now. Previous artwork, there's been something to give you like some kind of markers about, if not personality, then the relationship between the Doctor and the companion. Like, remember Capaldi when Clara had got the kind of like almost like a school uniform? She'd got the shirt and the tie.
Oh, I remember.
Blackboard. Yeah, I thought you might do. I thought that. But it gave you that kind of older Doctor mentor figure. And even, and I've got to say, even I didn't like Ruby Sunday, but at least the promo material, they got that. Yes, we are best buds. They got that kind of twee, holding hands thing. It gave you something. I'm not interested anyway.
Well,
but if I was,
here's what I noticed: the distance there. I like the fact that they're not holding hands. I like the fact that she seems to be standoffish a little with her hands behind her back, and he is almost trying to assure her that he can get her home, because I can see it. Look, it's there. That's Earth up there. So I think there is story in this. I think it's actually very strangely sensitive compared to what we had last year, which was very, very brash, very, very colourful, and, as you say, a little smug, very sure of itself. I'm far more interested in this, although, as I said, I don't think it breaks any molds, Gary. I do think that it is indicative of a story that could be told, and of a new relationship that we're going to be introduced to when the series starts.
Clearly, they're signposting probably what's going to be the narrative arc of the season. But I have to say, one of the things that came up in my feed this week was somebody did an alternative to this same design.
Yeah, there's about 30
but with using the Fifth Doctor and Tegan.
Yeah.
And I reacted more emotionally to that because I already have an emotional connection to those two
who that character is. Yeah.
So I immediately went, wow, with that. I was already affected by it. With this, because I don't know anything about Virata's Sethu's character yet, I don't really connect emotionally with this beyond what you just said. It's kind of a signpost of it's going to be about him getting her home. So I guess I admire the design, but not really much more. Yeah,
it's great for us to comment on and to look back and see patterns in, but we already know whether we're going to be watching or not. It's things like this are for the general public, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Peak in interest.
It's better than last year's.
The synopsis says the Doctor meets Belinda Chandra and begins an epic quest to get her back to Earth, but a mysterious force is stopping their return, and the time-travelling TARDIS team must face great dangers, bigger enemies, and wilder terrors than before. So it's
hyperbole.
I don't think that's the case. I think this is, again, I don't think it's anything that's breaking any molds. But I think as a mission statement, it's speaking of pure adventure, which is the kind of thing that we've sort of hungered for a little before.
No,
and we've been promised certain things before that ultimately haven't been delivered. But at least it's different to what we had before. And there's a full length trailer that goes with that too. So take a look at this.
I am the last of the Time Lords.
So is this Disney Plus's trailer?
An evolved
Disney
life
premiered
form.
it, but it's the same one as the
Right,
BBC are using as well.
Arrival.
But there's new shots here, definitely.
Lots of new stuff.
I'm the Doctor.
Doctor what?
Just the Doctor.
All right then. I'm called the nurse.
Good team. You left Earth.
It's been 2 hours.
It was 6 months ago. This should get you back. It is bigger on the inside than the outside.
You need to get me home.
You don't need to rush, because...
This is a time machine.
Boom. 1952. 51st century.
The 803rd Interstellar Song Contest!
Oh, we're so staying.
We're staying.
What year is this?
2007.
Can't you get this box of yours fixed? Have you ever heard of the planet Earth?
Never heard of him.
My parents are back home. Are they safe?
I hope so.
Ta-da!
What?
Roll up.
Doctor, what are you doing?
I think we're being... animated!
Gosh, I'm all flat. And this waistline
Apparently this has all been hand-drawn as well.
It looks it, and I am intrigued with that hand-drawn aspect.
I will not fail you! Everything is out of sync. Our entire reality is in danger. I promised that I would keep you safe.
But you can't promise.
I can. I will.
Sorry about the spider, Simon.
It's all right, you've seen it blown up already.
Spoilers.
Yeah, that's one big spider.
I like the Phil Collins song.
Get her home. Take me home. The classic Phil Collins track there. Early on we had the Eurythmics. Now we've got a bit of Phil Collins. It's not not what I was expecting at all from this trailer, but very, very welcome. Nonetheless, there's a bit of dad rock. This single was released in 19...
Verada Sefil's wearing that outfit, so you know.
This was released in 1985, the single. I remember it well. I bought that exact 7-inch. It was the 10th single from the huge album No Jacket Required. Only got to number 19 in the charts, but then again, it was the 10th single off that album, Gary. And even though this track is 40 years old, it seems mad that it's the backing to a brand new Doctor Who trailer. I loved it. Of course I did. They want to get people like me sort of tapping our feet and raving about it, don't they? Personally, I think that was a stunning trailer. And I love the fact that they're matching it with older music rather than something by Lady Gaga or something like that. And again, get her home, take me home. A simple sentiment. Nobody's trying to reinvent the wheel with this. And honestly, I think that taking Doctor Who as close back to those factory settings as possible is really wise. Ideally, they should have Daleks too. But generally speaking, I can't fault this logic. I think that it's, again, they're making all the right noises, saying all the right things. What are your thoughts, Gary? What do you think?
First of all, I'm fighting to stop myself from dying laughing at Crimpling's comment in the chat that Shooty's first album will be called No Shirt Required. But thank you for that, Crimpling. That was great. Yeah, I always kind of get triggered by 80s music. And yeah, the trailer was pacey. I think that they it seems like, Dan, you'd probably be able to tell me, it felt like the trailer was edited to the beat of the song.
Yes.
It felt like that. Yeah, I mean, I hope that it's good. I mean, we're going to spend, 8 episodes watching this, so I hope that what they give us is good. It seems like they're trying harder this time with the trailer, with this art. It just feels like they're putting a little bit more effort into it this time with the marketing.
I think they're thinking about what Doctor Who actually is, the language of Doctor Who, and the basic appeal of Doctor Who. I mean, I know that you're very much out of sync with it at the moment, Sarah, but is there nothing there that's sort of piquing your interest at all?
No, sorry. I thought, to be fair, to give credit where credit is due, if this had come out last year, I think things might have been very different. I think it's too little too late. No, I like the cartoon stuff. I think if it were any other era, I'd be excited. The thing is,
yeah,
it's Shooty for me. He's
not the weak link, isn't he?
And when he was doing the narration there, I am the last of the Time Lords. There's no gravitas, there's no presence. They're just flat words. It's not. No, you're not convincing me, Shooty. You're not the Doctor. I don't believe you. She's probably going to die. She's not. I don't trust you to take anybody home.
See, as much as I love that trailer, I think it's a brilliant trailer, but I do keep coming back to the same problem, and it is him. It's this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can. And at times, I liked some of what he did last year, but it was by nowhere near enough. And I'm not seeing any kind of evolution so far in any of this. I mean, maybe the combination of putting him with that slightly older, more seasoned actress, maybe that will do something, Simon. But as far as I'm seeing, this is the same. This is kind of the same dude. It's not.
Yeah, it's clearly the same dude, and I can't help it. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a lovely bloke, but he just irritates me.
I can see why. I can't
see any serious acting ability there on show. Like I said before, I'm sure he's great in the kind of shows that he's done previously. Sex Education, I'm sure he'd be brilliant in Hollyoaks, something like that. But he's not. I'm sorry, he's not the Doctor to me. He's not convincing me that he's the Doctor. He hasn't got the gravitas or the mercurial quality that I feel is required. But even if he had, I can't help it. He just irritates me the way he plays it. It's all just too cool, dude, for me. And that's not what Doctor Who. Doctor Who was never a cool dude. That was not what the character was.
Matt's Doctor was cool, but he had no idea that he was cool, and so it worked. Yeah. David Tennant's Doctor was kind of cool, but again, he had.
But not knowingly, not as you say, Dan, not knowingly. So that's the difference. Where he's bursting with the knowledge that he's just the coolest thing in the universe, and it just doesn't sit well with me.
Capaldi's Doctor was interesting in that respect, Charlotte, because he would say things like, I'm Dr. Disco, and he would sort of make out that he was cool, but he would do that in a sort of knowing way, in the way that...
And he wasn't cool.
I think he knew deep down that he wasn't cool.
Yes.
But this afternoon, I'm going to be cool, and I'm going to give it a go. It was a very kind of daddish version of cool. I think that worked.
The Doctor has to be written slightly out of step with everybody around him. There has to be that slight bit of... He's trying to be what humans would think as cool, what humans would see as charismatic, sort of cool, everybody loves them, sort of personality traits. But he can't quite do it because he's not human. I think that's the problem. And this is my issue with Shooty now in his acting, is I'm seeing less and less of an alien on screen now. I'm seeing more and more of just, here's a good looking fellow in his 20s. Like he's just sort of, there's nothing, like I said, that out of stepness or that oddity or that ancientness or something which makes him not one of us. He's too much of, like, honestly, he reminds me sometimes of just the people you see on like YouTube, like the sort of the people who have their vlogs and
the influencers.
Yeah, like that crowd. I'm increasingly getting that. But what I think is interesting for the Doctor you've said about development, he's actually got responsibility this series by the looks of it. He's actually got a goal to achieve this time. He has to get her home.
A duty of care, responsibility.
He's got that duty of care again. Well, it's felt like with Ruby, he'd never really had to look after her because she was always very capable. She never really, even when she got killed off technically in an episode, she was all right within 5 minutes. So
she got over it pretty quick.
Yeah, like, and even then, yes, you would think, look, you've just died, and you're acting like, oh, I'm fine. Like there was no sort of damage to that, and then he didn't act particularly like he was upset when it happened, but then he was smiling and having like jokes afterwards. So
I know we can't read too much into this, but I do like the feeling from this that she is just like really inconvenienced by this and doesn't really want to be there, and the things that he's doing and whatever he's up to is kind of riling her, making her a bit mardy. I mean, I do like a mardy girl at the best of times. Like this is sort of my ideal woman they're putting up on screen here. but the story in that, but obviously that has also got to travel. Otherwise, we know from past experience in the classic series that can get old quickly as well. So they've got a lot of ground to cover in 8 weeks, haven't they? I mean, Gary, you mentioned Tegan earlier on. They developed that character, but she has this decades-long reputation, I suppose, as being a Mardy cow. It was impossible to please, and so there are some fans who really, really like her, but there's a great many fans, probably more so, who never warmed to her because of that side to her nature. So it's a chance here to revisit a similar sort of situation with somebody who doesn't want to be there, but kind of do it with a bit more grace, should we say?
Well,
Skill.
I mean, and with Tegan, what was it, like 4 stories in, by the time you get to the visitation, she's like, oh, I decided to stay. I don't really, you don't need to get me home anymore. So there might be that kind of turn here where after a couple of episodes, she's like, oh, well, okay, I'll go with it. But the one thing I do want to say really quickly, the one quick shot in that trailer, which seemed odd to me, considering how they were front loading Verada in this whole trailer, was that single shot of Ruby. Because it's like Verada, then a single shot of Ruby, and then back to her. And that shot of Ruby, to me, seemed almost out of place.
It's almost like they're having to go, oh, by the way, Ruby's still here.
She's still in it. We didn't fire her. She's still in it. It's for the. I'm sure that stuff. I mean, it can't be there just for the fans, but it is a bit odd. I mean, yeah, maybe she's a big part of it. I don't know. David Jenkins is in the live chat, and he says that seemed to be taking Doctor Who back and away from activists and agenda. Maybe it's back to time and monsters. Fingers crossed. I might even try watching it, and I haven't done that since Capaldi. Yeah, there are actually monsters in this series, which is a step up, a considerable step up. So that's the second full-length trailer. It's here. I thought we'd get one more. I think we could get one that's specific to that first episode between now and when it all begins on April the 12th. But yeah, I think we've had some pretty strong trailers so far. A poster that is, as I say, it's not going to change the world, but it's really pretty, really nice. And so, in my view, the promotion of this is actually going slightly better than last year. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe they're just not as. Maybe there's not as much. Because according to information we've received, they've already made their decisions about what's what. So maybe there's not quite as much riding on this. Everybody knows what they're going to be doing in 12 months' time. I don't know what to think. But yeah, that's it as it as it stands. I mean, I'd be surprised if there's an elaborate marketing campaign between now and then. Just a couple of weeks left, Simon, but I suppose we'll get them turning up on Graham Norton and things like that. Who knows?
Well, will we? I don't know. It's difficult to say, isn't it? Will they do much promotion to lead up to
will Phil Collins turn up? Well, that's the most important question, of course.
I think the best thing they can do to promote this is not have shoot it anywhere near it and just leave it to her. Seriously, I think she seems a bit more professional, a bit more seasoned. I think she'll be great. I'm not gonna watch it to be invested for 8 episodes.
No, I know.
No
I think a lot of people will feel that way. Sarah, I think you're speaking for a lot of people in the fandom.
But yeah, and it's a shame because I think she'll be great. But yeah, but it doesn't really. We keep going back to this, with the first series with Christopher Eccleston. We know Billie Piper was a revelation. She really was, but she couldn't have done it on her own. You still need an actor to be the Doctor, and we've been so lucky that we got Chris Eccleston and others with this. I think if she'd have been paired with a better actor, things could have been a lot more different. But it's definitely Shooty's the weak link. He really is.
Do you think possibly then, with, like you said, so much of the marketing has been about her character, to be honest, like I've hardly seen them talk about the Doctor in any of the marketing so far, and I think that's I think it's a good move because, like I said, she's got more of an interesting hook as a companion versus Ruby, and like she seems to be quite an experienced actress at this point, so it makes sense to go with the experience. I'm just thinking, like, maybe sort of to go back to the Rose comparison, do you think maybe this series is going to be more about her than the Doctor?
I think it could be, yeah.
It needs to be. It needs to be about the dynamic between the two of them, particularly as there's only 8 episodes. Looking back, the whole setup with Ruby was perfectly viable, but it was very overcooked for something that was essentially on screen for a really short period of time. I think that's where they ultimately went wrong with that. They didn't seem, I can't believe I'm saying it, but they didn't seem to be thinking about what they were doing at all. Look, the season launches with the Robot Revolution Saturday, the 12th of April at 8 a.m. on BBC iPlayer. So something nice to watch over your cornflakes, maybe. And if it's not, then you've got the rest of the day to recover, haven't you? It's on later that day on BBC One in the traditional Saturday evening slot in the UK. Those outside of the UK can watch on Disney Plus. So it'll be simultaneously starting at 3 a.m. Eastern Time and 12 a.m. Pacific Time. There, each further episode transmits on subsequent Saturdays. No double bills, no nonsense. Type 40 will be watching, so make sure you're still subscribed and notified and all that. We're going to hit you with it, aren't we? Yeah. Time for a break. So never let it be said, Peter. Never let it be said we don't like to challenge you out there, fabulous, faithful viewers and friends, and everyone's favourite solid gold pit stop, the Type 40 Live Doctor Who ad break is next up. Can you spot the connection here in this assortment of commercials scattered from throughout telly times and places past? It's proper, only connect stuff. This will be back in a couple of minutes with the answer.
Malibu, the sun always shines when it pours.
You've heard about a contract up for grabs. You need information now. What do you do?
They're called RZH. It's potentially huge. Huge is what we need right now. Yeah, brain trees are already in there. Not again.
Okay, so first thing Monday morning, we get in the RZH annual report, their literature...
Jan, there's not that kind of time.
RZH, automotive parts, Sheffield. Annual turnover, 15 million, 100 employees.
The internet.
Nets, of course.
Happy fishing, guys.
So what kind of place are we talking about? Is it offices, warehouses?
I don't know yet. I've only just pulled
First,
it
we
off.
need a way in.
I think I've just found one. I was on a training course with him.
The internet can give your business a competitive edge. Let BT show you how. Call BT Business Connections on free phone 0800 800 800.
10 measly grand for a company car. I mean, what kind of impression could I make in a 10 grand car? I'd be a laughing stock. But then I spotted this new Golf Match. Very individual. And the spec, alloy wheels, power steering, pollen filter, even a CD player as standard. So now my colleagues think I've gone up a notch. Which means I get loads more work to do.
If only everything in life was as reliable as a Volkswagen.
Arrow, please, mate. What's that?
I don't know. Just comes with it.
I think I'll just stick with me bubbly chocolate.
Aero. All bubble, no squeak.
Welcome back to your Type 40 Live, covering the future, the present, and the past of all things Doctor Who. A proper hoo-ha as ever. And that was our curious conundrum of a Type 40 Live ad break. What did you make of that? Have we... Yes, I know. So I'm here with the panel. Have they been scribbling furiously? I'm here with the panel here, and yeah, we're back into it, everybody. So, had you worked out, Sarah? What do you think the connection might be?
Could it be Mark Benton by any chance?
Mark Benton. Yeah, you could be right. So, yes. Did anybody else have Mark Benton? Anybody else?
I love in the chat how somebody put, Mum, it's one of your nutters.
That's such great.
Yes, how could I resist the great Mark Benton, fabulous British character actor, in just a fraction of the adverts, the British adverts that he's appeared in, Simon. This guy's been banging them out for 30-odd years.
Absolutely. I remember him from Pond Life. He was in a fantastic sitcom called Pond Life. So that's where I first met Mark Benton on the screen. But it was good to see him in Rose. He was a good character in Rose. Worked very, very well.
He was the sort of textbook nerdy geeky dude, wasn't he? Clive, who had his shed plastered with various images of the Doctor's travels and files and all that kind of thing. A really fun character, I think, Charlotte.
Well, yeah. But I have to ask, for you guys, did it feel like Russell was almost cheekily having a bit of a, this is what the fans are like?
Yeah, of course it did.
Oh,
yeah, that's what I
with his wife, she's been emailing you and she's a she.
Yeah, I did. Like, obviously, as a kid, I didn't pick that up, but then I watched it when I was older. I was like,
cheekily, but affectionately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's it. Wasn't done with smugness.
With all of his stuff being out on the shed, not allowed to be in the actual house.
Quite right too, Gary.
But I was really quite sad when he got shot by that auto.
Yeah, they really shouldn't have killed him off.
Yeah.
Also,
really
I love his reaction. Like, everybody else is screaming and running, and he just looks like the equivalent of "Oh, not again!" Like, he's just so deadpan.
Definitely a cheeky swipe, but this one seemed good-natured, Gary, according to Demorpin in the live chat on YouTube.
And I noticed in the second commercial you had, Dan, the Office one, that the really young guy, the first thing you see, he was on Neverwhere. I think he was the main actor in that one. Yeah, I don't know his name, but I thought
he played
Neverwhere.
Paul McCartney in the Beatles movie Backbeat as well.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Recognized him instantly. I think he was in Crossroads on Channel 4. I think, says Mysterious on YouTube.
I don't think Crossroads was ever on Channel 4, was it?
It was there, by the sounds of it. Hathaway and Shakespeare, that's the drama, the afternoon drama that he's in at the moment, isn't it? It's lots of fun, that show. And apparently he was in Catterick.
He was in Waterloo Road, and Tommy Knight was his adopted son.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's done everything, hasn't he? Done everything. Clive photoshopping all of his dodgy Ninth Doctor photos.
I do remember when that scene was in Rose, and I remember thinking, oh, I wish I'd just love to have seen a photo of the fourth Doctor photoshopped in, or the third Doctor. But I get why they didn't do it. I realised that they, you know, the opinion was no, they've really got to focus on the going forward in this particular episode rather than the looking back. So I do understand why they didn't go back to any Doctors, and they did just stick with the photoshopped Ninth Doctor pics. But it did seem a shame. It seemed a miss. Yeah, quite right, Colin. Seemed a missed opportunity.
Did they miss a beat by not having like the daughter come back, like she's taken over for him and been the one who's investigating?
Yeah, good point.
And they could have done that in an episode.
Yeah. That'd have been cool.
They miss plenty of beats. Fortunately, we are here to pick them up. Every time the BBC and Bad Wolf and Disney Plus, they drop them. The good times keep on coming here at Type 40 Live, thick and fast. We leave it to Simon Horton to sort them all out, though, into some sort of agreeable order, because it's only he that can decipher everything that you can find between the pages of the Doctor Who diary.
Ah, yes, indeed. It's that time again, folks. Yeah, it's time to set the synchronic feedback circuit and activate the multi-loop stabilizers, and see where we end up. What was happening this week in the final week of March? What was happening this week in years gone by over the past 60 odd years? Amazingly, 60 years today. Episode 1 of The Crusade was starting in 1965, 60 years today, which is rather nice, actually, because 90 years ago today, Julian Glover was born. Wow. So Julian Glover, who of course plays the main part in The Crusades, was born today. Back exactly 90 years ago, and as I say, 60 years ago. So he was celebrating his birthday, his 30th birthday, on the day that episode 1 of The Crusades was screened. Also, it's lovely that we've got Patrick Troughton up on screen at the moment, because it would be very, very rude indeed not to mention in passing that Patrick Troughton would have been 105 years old this week. Very, very happy celestial birthday to Patrick Troughton, because very, very sadly, he tragically died in the same week. He died this week in 1987, in the week of his birthday. So, as I say, very, very happy birthday to Patrick Troughton wherever he is. And rather nicely, he also has 3 episodes in the diary this week. We haven't got time to talk about any of them, but I'll run them off anyway for you. Macroterra episode 3. Tom is, I know, in the live chat. T Dwarf Productions, you are in the live chat. I know that you are particularly fond of the Macro, so that one's for you. Fury from the Deep episode 3 was screening in 1968. The Space Pirate. I'm desperate to see that, Sarah. That is my favourite story, top of the list to come back. And the Space Pirates episode 4 was screening this week in 1969. So three episodes to celebrate Patrick Troughton's 105th birthday. But as I say, sadly, no time to talk about them. What we are going to talk about, we've been talking about New Who a lot tonight, so we're going to stick with New Who for a little while, because it's exactly 12 years ago this week that you would have been sitting down, Charlotte, to watch The Bells of St. John in 2000. 13, the start of the new season. Exactly 12 years ago this week, The Bells of St. John. As you can see there, I loved this outfit of Matt Smith. This was the debut. This purple cashmere coat, which I just thought was divine. This was the debut of that particular costume for the Doctor. Anybody else love this jacket as much as me?
No, I can't stand when they changed it from the.
Wow.
The Series 5 look. I hated this. I preferred the blazer. When they took it long-tailed, I didn't like this at all. For me, it breaks the silhouette.
It was too Willy Wonka for me, unfortunately.
Am I alone with this? Charlotte, help me out.
Vanessa agrees with you in the live chat.
Honestly, I love them both, like for different reasons, though. And
you're going to sit on the fence.
Well, no, because with that first one, like I said before, the tweed was such a perfect sort of symbolism for me of that old man in him.
Yeah, fair enough.
Here, you sort of got a bit more of the sort of the smarter side to Matt's Doctor, and the sort of the slightly more sort of prim and properness of his Doctor at times. But I can see why, because it was such a difference in colour. It was like you went from.
You're not alone, Simon. A lot of people on YouTube are agreeing with you.
Good.
I like the one he did. Was it in series 11 when not series 11, series 6? He had a long coat, but it was like a military green.
Oh, that was when they were in America for a couple of episodes. It was like a longer coat. Yeah,
I like that.
Well, anyway, back at the Bells of St. John.
I'm just getting you back, Simon, for not liking the concept.
Yeah, I'm moving on because I won't have you dissing this outfit. back at the Bells of St. John. Yeah, this was the first episode of 2013. The BBC insisted that this was the first episode of the second half of season 7. If you're following that, I'm really still not quite certain why. They rather excessively, apparently, they even threatened legal action against some of the sources that were claiming it was a new season. So yeah, they were insisting it was the second half of season 7. It's a new season as far as I'm concerned, but there we go. Yeah, exactly. Pete Harrington fight. What will you do? So I must be honest, this one did lose me a little bit. It was something to do with the internet and Wi-Fi and the London Shard and the Great Intelligence, apparently, but I could never quite work out what it was. And I wasn't sold on the motorbike going up the side of the Shard, and it's just a bit, I don't know. And apparently, there's the third version of Clara in this story or something, apparently, I think. Go figure. I
remember liking it, but it's not one I've gone back to. I don't think I've seen it in 10 years.
Yeah, I watched it recently because I was going back through some old Matt stuff. And I think the problem is with this story, you've got the Great Intelligence, which is such a fantastic sort of enemy and a villain.
Yeah.
And they don't really play with that until like 10 minutes till the end.
Yeah, it feels throwaway, doesn't it?
It feels a bit underdeveloped, but when they do fully sort of go with what's the Great Intelligence doing here, which is it's taking people's essences and making them sort of digital. That's the core premise. So it uses the internet because it's the idea of people just for casual, because they can't be bothered, they'll just link to a Wi-Fi they don't know. And that was Moffat doing that thing of commenting on sort of people's mannerisms, which he did. But so that was sort of a good chunk of it. But like I said, I think they needed to tie more clearly to the Great Intelligence.
Fly Highland here on YouTube says the thing I noticed about it is it was basically a remake of Rose. I think they mean plot-wise. I never really looked at it that way. I'll have to go back and watch this again because I enjoyed this quite a lot. I like it when Doctor Who goes comic book like that, and I like Celia Imrie. Thought she was pretty good from what I remember.
Celia Imrie as the villainess Miss Kislet. I mean, look, she was always born to play villains, wasn't she? I just think she's absolutely brilliant. My favourite line, which I'm going to share with you here, I'm not going to do it quite as well as Celia Imrie, so I'm not even going to try. But it's a wonderful line. I'm ever so fond of Alexei, she says, but my conscience says we should probably kill him. Actually, he's about to go on holiday. Kill him when he gets back. Let's not be unreasonable. I mean, who doesn't want a line like that as a villain?
This didn't really work for me because I think Clara had been introduced so strongly in The Snowman, which was literally just before this, and we'd also had the Great Intelligence in that one. So I think to have him back so soon, I mean, I get why, because they were showing, it is still alive, and it's evolved. But yeah, this isn't really one that I go back to. Maybe I should revisit it, but I just think this Clara just wasn't as strong, and I think Moffat was overcomplicating things with the different versions of Clara anyway. But this was definitely the weakest one for me.
Like I said, I think the problem was the Victorian one was such a, like I said, good characterization.
Yeah.
We've all said this how many times? Oh, we thought we were going to get a companion from the past, and we were all quite excited.
And you did suddenly feel shortchanged, didn't you, Charlotte? It was a disappointment, has to be said.
But like for me, though, just to go back to Cecilia, she's brilliant as that villainess.
She is.
But it's a scene when you realise that she was a child when the Great Intelligence got her, and she suddenly talks like, that for me that shows her talent, because so much of the story she has been this. You're right, this brilliant old school villainess, sort of chewing the scenery, being very sort of macabre with the sort of delivery. But that scene when she turns around and you can see it in her face and the way she's holding herself and the delivery, it's like, this is a child who's been traumatized.
Yeah,
and God, that's what the Great Intelligence should be. It should be that nasty. It should be that sort of morally. You just think, God, that's messed up.
Wouldn't she make a good doctor, Celia Imrie? There's a thought for you.
I would agree if it's not with one thing.
Go on.
She's not a bloke.
Oh, you had to say it, Dan. Fair point.
I have always loved Celia Imrie. I think she's a fabulous actress, in all seriousness. But
She'd be a good Rani if they did ever bring her.
Wouldn't she be a good Rani? Good idea, Sarah. Anyway, at this point, Doctor Who was still doing pretty well. 8.5 million viewers tuned in for the Bells of St. John. So yeah, this was a popular story. Doctor Who was still flying pretty high at this point. My fun fact of the Bells of St. John: the password of the Maitland family's Wi-Fi connection. I'm sure nobody will be able to remember it. I will remind you what it was, which is RYCBAR123, which was, you will be delighted to know, is a reference to Run, You Clever Boy, and Remember. That's why it's YCBAR. There you go. There's the fun fact of the day. You don't get these anywhere else.
That is fun. That's definitely fun.
So the Bells of St. John, as I say, happy 12th birthday to the Bells of St. John. Okay, so we're going to move on now. We're going to give the helmet regulator a really, really good twist now, because we're moving back many, many, many more years now. 51 years since The Monster of Peladon episode 2 was screening in 1974. 51 years, and I remember this being broadcast. Only bits of it. I remember only chunks of it. I just have vague memories of Alpha Centauri, who you will be excited to hear had a brand new cloak for this particular story. But still looked like something unmentionable that you still wonder how on earth they thought they were ever going to get away with it.
Yeah.
But somehow they did.
We've been laughing at this for 5 decades. It's never not going to be funny, is it?
It's still. I mean, yeah. You do. I remember being sort of shocked by Alpha Centauri as a kid, and you look at it now, and you just like, just what were they thinking?
I've got to say, I don't want to upset anybody here, but I don't like this story.
Oh, Sarah, I agree with you 100%.
Oh, thank heaven for that, because I fucking hate it.
I can cope with Curse of Peladon.
Oh, I like Curse of Peladon. I would defend Curse. I wouldn't defend this.
Yeah, it's like, why do we need to go back? We didn't need to go back. We didn't.
Oh,
need to
it's
visit
tedious
it.
in the extreme. To me, this is absolutely tedious. It's it's 5 episodes too long. That's for sure.
Yes.
Oh, it really
I'm
is.
so relieved it's not just me.
But again, I always struggle, and I think it is something with the Pertwee era. Whenever Pertwee's like, when it's studio based, I always have trouble more with the story. It doesn't matter how good or bad the story is. Because to me, I think, Gary, you mentioned this before, the Third Doctor should just be out in location. Whenever he's on location, he's amazing.
He's fabulous, yeah.
And there's that, the action with it, whatever he's driving or riding in. But when he's in the studio,
right,
not as bad as like oh, go on, is it the Death to the Daleks? That didn't seem quite as bad because there was still location stuff in that.
Yeah.
Well, the Doctor's spending 6 episodes dealing with a miners' union. That's
the problem, Gary.
Isn't really the stuff of gripping drama.
That's the problem. It is. It's a miners' strike. I'm sure it's very interesting at the time because it's topical.
Never looked at it that way.
It's
you
like
can't
when
get
the
good cliffhangers out of a miners' strike.
It's like when the Phantom Menace opens, isn't it? And the opening crawl is there's something to do with there's a trade union war, and everybody's like,
Is that why you think?
Over.
Is that why we got the alien we did? They were like, well, the story's a bit boring. Let's just put this alien that everybody's laughing at because of what it looks like.
Well, it's possible.
That will entertain the fans.
Well, it had been a big hit a couple of years earlier in the Curse. No, I do love Curse of Peladon. I sincerely do.
I do.
It was just as hilarious then, but
it does look hilarious, but somehow it looked less hilarious in the ridiculous new cloak they gave it for the Monster of Peladon. It just gets even worse. Little bit of background to the Monster of Peladon, if you can steel yourselves for it. This is the final story by Brian Hells. Last time Brian Hells will write for the for Doctor Who, and it's also the final appearance of the Ice Warriors for 39 years. Can you believe it? All the Ice Warriors in the Monster of Peladon are all original 1960s costumes. It's directed by Lenny Mayne, who directed The Curse of Peladon. Of course, they brought back Lenny Mayne for obvious reasons because he'd done Curse the year before. But it's basically a highly politicized sort of plot concerning miners and rogue traders, and that's about it really. It's got a mineral in it called trisilicate because Barry Letts saw it listed on the back of a tube of Boots toothpaste as one of the ingredients. That's why it's all about the trisilicate. I'm trying to make this sound interesting, folks.
Well, maybe when the season 11 collection comes out, they'll re-edit it into a 10-minute omnibus.
That's about all it needs.
I've never been able to watch this, with any kind of momentum. It's always like, really trudge my way through it.
Yeah.
It is a tough watch. Scott Goodman is in the chat. Scott Goodman brilliantly dresses up as the brilliant Third Doctor, and in fact, we've captured some lovely videos, Scott, that we use every so often on Type 40. He's calling us bloody Philistines in the chat. Sorry, Scott. We know you love Pertwee. I love Pertwee. I grew up on Pertwee, but I find this a slog. I really do. You get to about episode 4 and you're thinking, please, I can't believe there's 2 more episodes of this still to somehow plow my way through.
Agonizing. I mean, I've always got this blind spot where Pertwee's concerned, particularly the 6-parters, and this is the very worst example in my opinion.
Sarah Jane has her feminist meter dialed up to 11.
Yes.
Oh, she's insufferable in this.
Yeah. It's all quite tedious. I'm sorry. I'm wondering.
Doctor Who at its most Star Trek.
Yeah.
Have you seen this one, Charlotte? Have you seen this one?
I've seen bits of it.
Okay.
Not
Leave it at that, Charlotte. Stick with it at bits of it. The most interesting thing I can tell you about the Monster of Peladon is that at various points you will get to see Stuart Fell is inside the outfit of Alpha Centauri, and every so often you will thrillingly get to see Stuart Fell's neck through the gap between the cloak and the head, and you even get to see his feet poking out the bottom of the costume at one point as well. Yeah. It's that good a story. Pertwee, bless him, was suffering very badly with his back at this point. Pertwee always suffered badly with his back throughout his whole time in Doctor Who. But it was particularly bad during the making of the Monster of Peladon. And so Terry Walsh does an enormous amount of doubling for John Pertwee in this story, and there's a particularly terrible fight at the end of episode 4 in which it's so obviously Terry Walsh. You just wonder why they didn't just kind of cut the whole thing out. It's excruciating. It's well, there you go. 51 years since the Monster of Peladon. It seems like 151 years since. It's that awful.
Yeah. This season's not out on Blu-ray yet, is it? So
no, it isn't.
Hopefully they'll do something to it to make it tolerable. But
well, the only thing to do is, as Gary says, is edit it down. Just take about 80% of it out.
Am I correct, Simon? And I apologize if you were about to say this, but am I correct in remembering that it was during the filming of this story that Pertwee told them that he wasn't going to be coming back?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes, it was at this point that he was ready to move on. So yeah, this is very much
to be honest, I can't say I blame him.
And so you can't imagine why he did that, can you, Sarah? So yeah. Anyway, happy birthday, 51 years since the Monster of Peladon. And of course, it was produced by the great Barry Letts, sadly no longer with us, but Barry Letts would have been 100 years old yesterday. Wow. And so we wish again a very, very happy heavenly birthday to Barry Leopold Letts, to give him his full name. You probably knew that his name was Leopold because, of course, it was...
You've told me that before, but I always forget.
It was used, yeah, his middle name Leopold, and of course they used it then as Guy Leopold had supposedly written the Demons, because it couldn't be credited to Barry Letts. So yeah, Barry Letts would have been 100 years old yesterday, and gosh, we do salute Barry Letts because when he took over in 69, going into 70, Doctor Who was definitely on the wane, to the extent where Barry Letts and Terence Dicks, who you can see in the middle of the shot there, were tasked by the BBC with the job of finding a replacement for Doctor Who, because they genuinely thought that season 7 was going to be would have been the final season of Doctor Who. They thought that they wouldn't be continuing it after season 7 because it was just not doing very well. And of course, the rest is history. So that's all thanks to not just Barry Letts. Of course, it's thanks to Terence Dicks and John Pertwee, but nonetheless, Barry Letts has cast a huge shadow over Doctor Who because of his contribution to it. We'll go into it in a little bit more in a moment. I know that Charlotte, bless you, you are about to dip out and leave us for the evening, aren't you? So before I go into Barry Letts' background, I will say good night to you and thank you for joining us.
Good night, everybody. See you
on
Monday.
Good night, Charlotte.
Good night,
Charlotte.
See you for the early edition on Monday. Bye-bye.
So yeah, Barry Leopold Letts, born on the 26th of March 1925 in Leicester, not a million miles away from you and I, Dan. He started life, believe it or not, as an actor. He often talks about this. There we go. There are some of the roles that he took on. He was a very successful actor. He did a lot of stuff. He did a lot of swashbuckling, as you can see there. He acted.
He's very dashing in that bottom photo. Yeah.
He acted with Roger Delgado at one point, which is why Roger was so forefront in his mind when it came to casting the role of the Master. So yeah, he started as an actor, and he then went on to directing. He directed The Enemy of the World in 1968 with Patrick Troughton. who we were just talking about. So yeah, An Enemy of the World is I think a cracking piece of work. It's a really, really well-directed story. And of course, when he took over the producership of Doctor Who, that was one of the things he insisted on, was he wanted to continue doing some directing, because this is how he had started out his behind-the-scenes career, was directing Enemy of the World, as we can see there. I'm guessing that could be Barry Letts' hand just top left there. I
believe so.
Is it? There we go. Thank you, Dan. So I thought I recognised his hand. There we go. So he went on. He went on to say he started producing Doctor Who in '69 and went on to produce 24 stories in 5 years. But he also, as I say, directed as well. He directed Terror of the Autons, Carnival of Monsters, Planet of the Spiders. He even directed some of Inferno when Douglas Camfield was taken ill. And after he left producing, he came back and directed the Android Invasion. He co-wrote The Demons, The Green Death, Planet of the Spiders. He also wrote The Ghosts of N-Space and The Paradise of Death, which were the audio plays starring John Pertwee and Liz Sladen. So this guy has a long and illustrious Doctor Who career. He also then came back in 1979 to 80 to executive produce season 18, because at that point the BBC was taking on an untried producer by the name of John Nathan Turner, and so they brought Barry Letts back to act as an exec producer to help JNT through his first year.
I was going to say, was that an unprecedented thing? But I suppose
it wasn't.
It must have been, because there can't have been too many long-running dramas that would have meant that somebody could kind of travel that distance as part of a career path.
Yeah, it was an unprecedented move at that point. So the season 1 of Doctor Who did have executive producers, but that's because it had just been sort of created and they just didn't quite was going to go through. But season 18 was the first season after that to have an exec producer. Apparently, Barry Letts had quite a reasonable influence over the development of season 18, and certainly over the incorporation of the sort of hard science that comes into season 18. Not only that, let's not forget that he created the characters of Sarah and Harry that then went on to move through season 12, and he cast Tom Baker. So we obviously think of him as being central to the John Pertwee years, which he was. He produced every story apart from the first story, Spearhead from Space. But he also cast Tom Baker, and he produced Tom's first story, Robot. He also, created The Master along with Terence Dix, that we can see on the left-hand side. That is Terence on the left.
In the top 5, if not the top 3 most influential off-screen Doctor Who people.
I would put him up there with John Nathan Turner. I think those two probably cast the longest shadows of actually the amount of their lives that they spent working on Doctor Who in some form or another, but B, you're right, Dan, just the actual influence that they had over the...
I'm not a Pertwee guy. I am an 80s kid, but the endurance of the things that Barry Letts conceived of, the decisions that he made, he must have made the odd mistake, but I can't think of any.
The Monster of Peladon.
Yeah.
That's about it. That is about it. Yeah, and let's not forget that Gallifrey was also created under Barry Letts. We see potentially Gallifrey at the very end of the War Games, just as Barry Letts is coming into the show. But then we truly see Gallifrey for the first time in the Three Doctors, and of course it's named. We name Gallifrey in a Barry Letts story as well in the Time Warrior. So yeah, he's massively influential. He was also, he's a really interesting character in his own right. He was an ecologist and a Buddhist, which of course is where a lot of the influence comes through then in things like Planet of the Spiders, the Buddhist tendencies in that was written very much as a direct Buddhist parable, and so he was very, very much into sort of New Ageism, as it were, and as I say, ecology. That's why again we get things like the Green Death. You get the eco domes in things like Colony in Space. You know, he very much had his finger on the pulse.
So a man of his time rather than somebody who was living in the past. It was
very much so.
But it was never preachy, though. It was just like organically the story. All those.
And one of the reasons for that, Sarah, is because as soon as he came onto his producership, he started having the New Scientist delivered to the production office, and he would have ecology magazines delivered to the production office. So it just became sort of embedded in the ethos of what they were doing, and that's why I think, Sarah, it feels organic rather than shoehorned in what is today's agenda. He was very much of the opinion that no, the story comes first. But if the adults can see something else in there that the kids aren't, some metaphors, some parables, some crossovers, then that gives something for the mums and dads to watch as well. That was his sort of take on it. Sadly, I say he died in 2009, aged 84. But we are lucky in that he contributed to so many of the DVDs in the way of commentaries and documentaries. So we're lucky in that we understand a lot of how he saw Doctor Who, how it worked. He was, of course, very, very much welcomed back into the fold. Again, we've talked a lot about New Who tonight. And he was very much welcomed back into the fold back in 2005 with the launch of Rose, because both Barry Letts and Terence Dicks were invited along to the press launch for Rose. There are some photos of the press launch back in the day. And, Russell T Davies was very much of the opinion that he wanted the old teams back there so that the link was made. It could very much have been the opinion that they felt, no, let's keep the past in the past and let's embrace the future. But no, they were very respectful of the past, and they recognised that, Barry Letts just, as I say, had a massive, massive influence on the fact that the show was still going. I'm not sure that Barry Letts necessarily shared the love of the new show that you might have hoped he would have done.
I was going to ask, do we know what he made to the...
Russell T Davies and Phil Collinson have told that story several times, whereby at the screening, Barry Letts was sat in front of them. I think it was a row or two in front of them.
Yeah.
And at one point and they'd spoken before, and Russell had met Letts before, but they weren't friends, but they knew of one another. So Barry Letts was sat a couple of rows in front, and apparently there was a point during Rose whereby Barry just got up ever so slightly, brought his arm round with a big thumbs up, and smiled and made eye contact with Russell doing that. This is a story that they've recounted several times. Both Russell and Phil Collinson have spoken about that, and how he was all smiles, and afterwards he was raving about it. But it was one particular, I can't remember which moment it was, and I think Letts is on camera talking about that on Doctor Who Confidential, or one of the supplementary shows. So that is out there, but that's the only bit I've ever heard, because it was only a couple of years later before Barry Letts did pass away.
Yeah, and Terence Dicks, they were always reasonably kind in their words about Modern Who. I think, as I say, if he was honest, it wasn't really necessarily his idea of what Doctor Who, because it was so different to it. But I think what he was doing there with giving a thumbs up was very much saying, okay, the baton has been passed on. You're doing a completely different show to the one we were doing.
Yeah. In a professional sense, but he made so much television, Simon. And I would imagine that it was the same in 1980. That was very different to the Doctor Who that he turned out.
Absolutely. And this is why, to an extent, he clashed with John Nathan Turner during the making of season 18, because they had very different ideas about how television should be and what Doctor Who should be. And that's quite understandable. But I think, you're right, Dan. What he was doing was being a true professional and saying, you know, well done. As I say, I've passed the baton on, and you're holding it well. He did say at one point, and I do love him for this, he did say at one point, if you watch Doctor Who nowadays, there's music going on 98% of the time, and I find it infuriating. And I love him for that, because I put my thumbs up to him at that point. And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you a little bit on that one, Barry. I do understand that.
You know, considering that the ratings of the show were kind of on shaky ground at the end of season 6. I mean, Barry Letts came in and not only, you know, secured the show's future, but made it more popular than it had ever been before.
Totally. It went stratospheric at that point. You know, Tom Baker, of course, then took it up to the next level. It was very much, you can see those early years of the first 4 Doctors of them, of each stepping, as it were, on the shoulders of the other to lift themselves up. But you're right, Gary. Barry Letts really did steer a very, very steady ship with through the Third Doctor years, and it became very well. It turned John Pertwee. John Pertwee was obviously a well-known name up until that point, but he just became mega celebrity stardom as a result of Doctor Who. So it was just a massive success, and of course he did it for 5 years. So he is the second longest serving producer of the classic years after John Nathan Turner. So you know, he's a true legend and a lovely bloke. Did anybody else ever get to meet him? I was very lucky enough to
saw
have met
him, but
once.
I never actually spoke to him. I think I was at an event that he was there, but I didn't really know who he was. I know it sounds like heresy, but I just was never a big fan of that era. So
no,
and I didn't know any of the stories. I hadn't seen most of them, so I didn't really know who he was.
He was a true gentleman and a very, very erudite and learned man. You know, he was a clever chap. He knew what he was doing, and so he was just nothing but politeness and sincerity. And despite all of the success that he brought on Doctor Who, the same as Philip Hinchcliffe, just no smugness at all, just very, very humble. He just, as he and Terence Dix always used to joke, all they were doing was just trying to get a show on the Saturday night television once a week. And they saw it very much as just a job, and that's what they were meant to do, and they did the best they could. And so he would have been 100 yesterday. So very, very, very happy birthday to Barry Letts, wherever you are. We're raising a glass to you tonight, sir. And just finally, for a bit of fun, really, in the diary, to bring us right up to date, as I said, we've been talking a lot about New Who tonight, and of course we talked about the fact that Rose screened exactly 20 years ago last night, but interestingly today on the 27th of March, of course, was very much the day after. It was the morning after the party the night before, and it's interesting to see now quite how. I don't know whether anybody else can remember the reception that it got. I can certainly remember. Funnily enough, I remember going home after the wedding. We'd all stopped over in the hotel the night before, so I still hadn't even seen Rose at that point. And I remember going home the next morning and stopping off in the service station and going into Smith's to whatever it was, and all the newspapers were just full of Doctor Who, and I was like, wow, it worked.
It's arrived.
Yeah. It arrived. And so many press stories came out on the 27th of March, exactly 20 years ago today. Okay, so not all of them were favourable.
No.
This
was a standout negative one, but most of them were favourable.
Most of them were very, very favourable, and this one, you know, was very much out on a limb on its own. It was ploughing its own furrow, this particular story, because it just really resonated with the public. So there we go. Yeah, because indeed Doctor Who did incredibly trounce Anton Deck. Anton Deck only got, I think it was 7.2 million viewers. Doctor Who got 9.9 million viewers, and actually peaked at 10.5 million viewers at one point during the show. So it averaged out at 9.9, which was just incredible. And to see off Anton Deck.
Week 1 as well.
Week 1, absolutely, Dan, before any momentum had been built up whatsoever. There was no love for Doctor Who at this point. They literally had just hit the ground running in Rose in every sort of sense of the word. And it's just remarkable to think now that it did such an incredible job. And of course, what we've got to remember is this wasn't a one-off where it went from strength to strength to strength.
Yes.
The viewing figures kept going up. You know, unlike certain other eras of the show that have started with a massive bang and ended up on a whimper. This just kept going up and up and up. So Doctor Who was very, very much back. It got 44.3% of the audience share, which is that's nearly 50. That's nearly half the audience were watching Doctor Who. Yeah. Now we know, we've talked about this numerous times, that obviously the landscape of television has changed a lot over the last 20 years, and viewing habits are completely different to what they were 20 years ago. But nonetheless, you know, you have to hand it to the production team. They absolutely pulled a blinder with this one. The slightly bitter pill to take with all of this, of course, is that literally just 4 days later, on the 31st of March, we heard that Christopher Eccleston was out, and he was gone, and that was just 4 days later, which is remarkable.
That was tough that day. That was very tough.
It was. I was gobsmacked. Absolutely.
Do you remember that, Sarah?
I don't. I remember. I'm like, but I've only just got to know him.
It was remarkable. It was absolutely remarkable because it had just, as I say, 3 days earlier, the newspapers had just been full of nothing but praise for this show, and then suddenly, a couple of days later, Christopher Eccleston is going, and it just felt like, whoa, what a kick in the teeth.
Even though it wasn't the end of the world, ultimately it did feel that way at the time. What a kick in the teeth it appeared to be. And you've got people like, you know, Colin Baker was quoted in the media being very angry about it. People just didn't understand. People were confused. No. They felt betrayed by the actor or by nobody really knew what to think.
No, it was a really, really odd thing, and it just left a very bad taste in the mouth when everybody been so excited about the show coming back, and episode 2 in a few days' time, and suddenly, it deflated the bubble, to say.
I'm curious. I don't want to sidetrack the diary time, but I'm curious. Did that news coming out affect the way the three of you then watched the rest of the series in real time?
Yeah, it did me. I have to be honest, it did me, because suddenly it felt a little bit less legitimate. It felt a bit like you knew you were now watching a show that was about to
felt like
it wasn't going to die.
I felt, Simon, like I'd been counting down the weeks to the series coming back, and now I was counting down again, because although I was getting to know that character and that actor and get used to seeing him in the role, it was like, okay, we've got another 8 weeks of him, 7 weeks of him, 6 weeks of him. It was always in the background, and it was a miracle. It didn't.
You knew he was leaving.
Yeah, it didn't spoil it for me. It may even have made it that bit sweeter. I don't know, because it played out how it played out. So I've got nothing to judge it against. But it was the fact is, the show was such a runaway success that, in all honesty, by about 4 weeks in, I was enjoying it so much, and watching the rest of the country enjoy it so much, if not more, that it didn't matter a bit to me. Certainly by week 7 or 8, I was out of my mind.
It definitely, it didn't spoil it for me, but it definitely sort of changed it, simply because you were aware that this guy was going. But what's remarkable, and this is absolutely testament to the quality of that first season, is it didn't affect, as I say, the ratings. Quite the opposite, they were going up and up. So it wasn't that that public suddenly felt, oh, I can't invest my time into this show because the star is about to go. And you would logically think, Gary, that would have happened, that the public would have lost interest, that the momentum would have dropped because people wouldn't have felt invested in it quite the same. Didn't happen at all. Completely the opposite.
Yeah, I felt even more invested because I felt, well, we've got this limited time. I'm enjoying what I'm watching. I'm invested. I want to see how this plays out. And of course, I didn't really understand the regeneration thing. I mean, obviously, I was keeping up with the news, and then we got the news that David Tennant was being cast. I was like, well, this is going to be strange. How can they replace the lead actor? This is going to be weird. But it was helpful because obviously how it was written. That whole scene is kind of, he's talking to Rose, but really he's talking to us. He's talking to me and Charlotte and everyone else. This is what's going to happen. Then we had that lovely episode of Doctor Who Confidential that came with it, and so you kind of got the backstage stuff, kind of like to hold your hand, to guide you through it. But it was so traumatic.
But I can also remember that by episode 3, The Unquiet Dead, the press started off positive about Rose, and by the time episode 3 came along, everybody in the press was just loving Doctor Who and going into overdrive about
the reviews got even better.
Yeah, they did.
You couldn't find anybody with a bad word to say about this show, and that was despite the fact that not all of them are absolutely. Collectively, the entire series is absolutely standout, excellent. But obviously, there are some that are better than others.
Yes,
but people knew. I think people received it in the way which it was intended. We were being deliberately entertained, shamelessly entertained. And it was so unifying as well, so properly inclusive. It was like being at a party for 45 minutes every Saturday.
It was.
And you'd been invited to something with a spirit of such generosity.
Yeah.
That how could you possibly, even the cynical British press who had that negative story, and they could have sold that story about the disgruntled staff for 3 months solid if they'd have wanted. But everybody was having too much of a good time. That's the God's honest answer.
And it carried on. It carried on all the way through the weekend because obviously it was broadcast on the Saturday. Then you'd have Doctor Who Confidential. It was repeated on BBC 3 on the Sunday.
That's right.
I used to record it or watch it as well. And then, but by the time you got to Monday, if you're at work or at uni, that's where I was. It was like Game of Thrones. It was the water cooler moment. Kids at school were playing. I remember it reached a peak with The Empty Child because I was working at a school at the time, and in the playground there were kids running around doing the "Are you my mummy?" and it was just wonderful to see everybody, no matter what age, boy or girl, everybody. It was like, I suppose it was kind of like the Dalek mania of the 60s, but
very much. Yeah, very, very much. And as I say,
real Doctor Who fever, and the Doctor and Rose and Christopher Eccleston and Billy Piper, they did become household names, and words like TARDIS and Dalek entered the popular lexicon over a period of a few weeks. It was extraordinary.
And what's interesting is, of course, that Dan, we had waited so long for this show to come back since it's obviously sort of faded away with Sylvester McCoy, and then we'd had the McGann movie that hadn't worked, and so we'd waited so long for it to come back, and there was definitely sort of trepidation of whether this would work or not. So actually, Thursday, the 27th of March, when those viewing figures were released of 10.5 million, was finally, we could literally punch the air and say, it is back. Yeah. It worked, and clearly it's now on a trajectory where it's going to. So finally, 27th of March in many ways is the most important of the dates in New Who, because it was the point at which the future was secured, because those first viewing figures were out and nobody could believe that they were as good as they were. So exactly 20 years ago today, we got that news really, and we're still here.
We're still very much here, and so is the affection for this time. Noel says it was consistent and well written.
Absolutely.
Dalek Lives Matter says it would have been so much better had Chris had another 2 seasons. Well, maybe, but he didn't.
Maybe not.
These are things I never. I mean, obviously, results are going to vary. I never think about that. It's now so long in the past that I just don't think on things like this. It was the only time Ant and Dec lost for years. They were Saturday Night Gold, and you can hear the fear in Russell's voice in those interviews from that time when he was doing the circuit. I think he believed that there was no way the show was going to beat Ant and Dec.
Yes,
but it would just go where it went and do what it could, and that was that. He was almost resigned to the fact. And I've never. Maybe he was being just conservative. Maybe I don't know. But he was making all the right noises as if to say, look, we're going to give it our best shot. And so to trounce such a popular show, a Saturday Night Takeaway, from the beginning and to keep pounding it really was incredible.
Yes, it was. It really was.
What an exciting time to be a Doctor Who fan.
Yeah. It was good. They were good days. They were very good days. So there we go. Happy birthday, 20 years to the viewing figures for Rose. 20 years ago today.
And thank you for putting all of it together for us as well, Simon, to relive those Saturday tea times and the Sundays after from 20 years ago. I can't quite believe it, but I've had all week to kind of wallow in it. Sarah, we really have had a good time going back through some of this all week on Type 40 Live to one degree or another, looking at it from different quarters, but to look at press cuttings from around that time and to compare notes as well too, Gary, from across the Atlantic as well as amongst ourselves. That's where the real gold lies.
I mean, I was thinking earlier in the show that as we were talking about the marketing, the billboard and the trailer and the way that it all led up. I mean, this was a really, a masterclass in marketing, and I would think that you could use how this show was brought back, like in media courses, like how to effectively, bring back, a franchise like that with the right marketing and the right promotion. I mean, it really is a case study.
And you got to remember, Gary, it was dead in the water. This brand was dead in the water, and it was never coming back. So that's why you're quite right. It's a good case study of how to do it.
And yet back it came. The diary will be back as well, Simon.
It will
next week, I think.
Next week. Yeah.
Yes, it's
all
here
been
next
well.
week.
Who can say what will be there? Who can say?
Please don't let it be Monster of Peladon Part 5.
Thank you, everybody, for all those comments, all those memories, for indulging us and for getting involved each and every time as we geek out here at Type 40 Live. Simon, what a brilliant diary. Thank you again. What else next? Yes, it's 20th anniversary week here at Type 40 Live for new Doctor Who. Not all new Doctor Who. New Doctor Who. There's three. We have three iterations. We have three iterations now. And now we've circled right back to the big. Oh, thank you, Aidan.
Wow,
not killing the bus. Look, God. Thank you, Vanessa. Yes. The first trailer was that first trailer was ultimate promo.
Yeah,
says Duncan.
Yeah,
it really was.
And more appreciation for the one and only Simon Horton there, including from Noel Gwynn of the TARDIS Zone, Matthew Pounder too. Wonderful stuff. So yes, even though we are ever so slightly overrunning, we do have one more thing to get into after a few words from this guy, I think, before we do this.
So you went into a phone box with a mobile phone. They phoned it was ringing. It was pouring the rain, that's why. So you went into a phone box and you had a mobile.
To cry in private.
I was hoping it was a TARDIS. Swat. I know.
Oh, what a naughty doctor.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, flying the flag for the talent, dedication, and wealth of creativity out here in Doctor Who fandom. It is second to none, and there's never any shortage.
Channel was on then. I thought I was on back on the rabbi.
She wears
There's
that
never
well.
any shortage of pretty pictures to distract us from the duller everyday as we scroll through our pudding brain lives. Yeah, one up for the Union flag there, as sported by Billy Piper and Rose Tyler. They're on screen in Doctor Who 20 years ago. At Type 40 Live, we've always done what we can to encourage and showcase Doctor Who fan art and artists in our virtual gallery. It's not quite as magnanimous as all of that. It's also can fill up, well, these great big grey horrible walls here with digital or traditional jaw droppers, model makers and cosplayers can apply too. We just want fan art to get up on the wall here for us to drool over and to showcase to you beautiful people, our fellow friends, fans and companions out there in the live chat on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook and X. Where are we going first? So yes, there's lots and lots of new fan art that has appeared over the last few days, as you would expect when it's a special occasion, when it's a Doctor Who sort of red letter date, including this one. We haven't featured any of his work in a little while, but this is from Thizargo Loose, and it's a picture of, well, you can see for yourself, the Doctor and Rose on the banks of the Thames there, lit up by, what was this? Is this the Millennium Wheel, did they call this? Or am I imagining that?
Yes.
Yeah,
it's the wheel, yeah.
Seem to remember. It's a fabulous cartoon from this. I think he's a fan artist. I think he's sort of semi-professional, but he's never worked in Doctor Who professionally. I just think it really captures that moment, that relationship, and the colours, I think, of that time really quite beautifully as well. Must be completely invisible, and the Doctor's sort of clasping in his head. He can't see for the life of him. Bless him.
It's my favourite moment in Rose. That is because it's just so Doctorish. It just absolutely encapsulates the Doctor because he's so clever on the one hand and so stupid on the other hand. It's just a brilliant moment.
He's got the ears down too.
Yes, he has.
But yeah, he's gorgeous. I love the colour. I love the glow of the blue on the
it's lovely.
wheel as well. Really, yeah. Oh, it's just.
I wouldn't mind to see a whole animation done in this style.
No, I'd like that as well. It was Millennium Wheel before the Eye, says Heretic. Oh, is that right?
Oh, yes, it was, yeah.
Simplistic and beautiful cartoons, says Stephen Braddock. It's got a kind of, I was going to say Disney, but it's actually more Don Bluth style animation.
Yes.
Yes, it's got that very like Thumbelina look, actually, Rose.
I really like this. You can find Thizargo's work on X and Instagram. Lots of Doctor Who stuff, lots of just general geeky stuff and fantasy artwork too. So really idiosyncratic fan artist and into all sorts of things, movies and TV and general illustration as well. So please go and find him on social media and tell him that Type 40 sent you by all means. On the digital side, we've got this one from Danny Kennedy, who is, I think they're trying out for a Big Finish gig, given where the spaces are left just right for the logo and the titles of an audio drama. But I really like this one. You see a lot of this kind of thing, but the colours are particularly synonymous, I think, with the Eccleston era, more so than even the Tennant era in this piece, all that fire. I looked into the TARDIS and the TARDIS looked into me and all that kind of stuff, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, it's stunning.
That would have worked as a billboard too.
That really, it would, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really would go. I mean, I would have this as a poster or as a print, I think it's stunning. And there's just something about that glow. It just makes you think of the TARDIS, the heart of the TARDIS, or even, and it's just, again, that trailer, the Trip of a Lifetime trailer when he's got the fireball behind him and he's running, it's really evocative of just
the
that
fireball,
era.
I hadn't thought of that. And I think that's the
and it's the logo, isn't it?
It's
the sort of the gold in the logo and the gold in the title sequence as well. It's all there, isn't it? It's lovely. It's very heroic. That piece of art. Yeah, very heroic.
Stephen Braddock says it's stunning. I'd happily have that on my wall. more. Rob Alexander says it's a very clever colour combination. Competent and well laid out, says Richard Brooks. And we've got, what else is here? Nice, lovely detail. I think better than Lee Binding, says Peter Harrington. And a nice realm here says, I was a fan of Eccleston before he became the Doctor, but I had already fan cast him years earlier. You're the one person who saw Christopher Eccleston coming as the Doctor, because I certainly never did. I won't pretend I did. As I said on Monday's show, go back and watch Monday's show, and you'll get our instincts on all of that with the writer Paul Hayes. It's yes, so there's lots of that kind of thing. I'm glad people like this, because we do like to mix up the digital stuff with the traditional stuff. Rose is stunning. Oh, God. Okay.
We've got to that time of night, have we?
Yeah.
See, I'm a good sight reader, but now and again, yeah. Okay.
Well, next.
And finally, yes, we are marking 20 years of New Who this week, and so are they, across official media and in fan circles too. There's lots of digital art that's been put together, like composite artwork and things. But the one that I really like the most, I think, is, and this is despite the fact it features, this is from Whovian Life. All of the new Doctors from 9 through to 15 here, quite beautifully finished and very colourful. They're from Whovian Life over on X. Use of pictures, some of which I've seen before, but a couple that I haven't. The Matt Smith one, I'm sure I've not seen that before.
Yeah, no, I don't know. The Capaldi one, I don't recognise the Capaldi one either, I have to say.
And all the TARDIS console rooms behind the various Doctors as well.
Yeah, that's what works so well. He's putting those console rooms, and I love the colours in that. That's just a great use of colour. It's beautiful the way they pick.
It's a bit Quality Street, but then again, I like Quality Street.
Yeah, it's quite multicoloured swap shop, and that's why I like it.
Lovely colours. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd probably cut it off about halfway through.
Wouldn't we all?
But to be fair, I think what the choices they've done. Really good. I mean, I love the Capaldi one is so striking with the fire.
Yeah, with the trout and pants.
Full of personality. Whovian Life has actually, I couldn't show one and not the other, could I? This was the original picture. They've also added the classic Doctors to the work as well. So there's now 2 of these, again with the TARDIS consoles behind each incarnation of the Doctor. So I couldn't show one and not the other.
That's fabulous. Yeah, that is. That's all warm and glowy, that is.
The 7th Doctor's piercing
Love the fact
eyes.
that the 4th Doctor has the second control room, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I agree, Gary. I love that secondary console room.
Really nicely done from Whovian Life over on X and Instagram. Lots of Doctor Who artwork, as you would expect. Different kinds of artwork too. So some of it is more commercial art, and some of it is kind of print style artwork, which you could hang on your wall potentially. But I thought that was a nice piece to finish off this selection from the gallery with, to mark 20 years of New Doctor Who. Thank you, everybody, for all the comments there. I love this one. It's the Peter Venkman fan site. The classic Doctors one is fantastic, says Stephen Braddock. Loves the classic versions. Rob Alexander. Very nice, says Peter Harrington. So, it's go over and catch Whovian Life on social media and tell them that Type 40 Live sent you by all means. But we need more. We want more. We hunger for more. More. It's big walls. Just look at that. So we need more fan art. And we don't care how we get it sent. Us, its way, it our way. It works either way by us. And you can get it our way by reaching out to us through our social media as ever. That's Instagram and X at Type 40 Doctor Who. Or you can join us in the Type 40 Facebook group. Over on Facebook, they type Type 40 into the search field and we'll pop up. Join in the discussions, all those debates over there. Plaster the walls with fan artwork and maybe start an argument if you want. You know what Doctor Who fandom's like. Now and again, there's a few crosswords. You can, leave us a message too. This is new for 2025. This is on SpeakPipe. across the podcasts and the video content, you can be part of Type 40, all from the palm of your hand. You have to come up with something else on it. Yes, you can record us a message, a question, a prediction, any feedback whatsoever over there on SpeakPipe, and we'll put it into the show. We'll get you up on screen or through the speakers, and we'll interact with you in real time. There, be part of the show at SpeakPipe. What's next? Yeah, don't get too lippy. The lippy logo is right there. But we have been mostly back in the past on this edition of the show, celebrating 20 years of new Doctor Who. All together there for some fantastic comments and memories. Thank you, everybody on the panel. As ever, Gary Akers, Sarah Graham, Simon Horton, Charlotte Shields. What a great show. They'll probably have to just combine the anniversaries from now on. I think 25 years of New Who will be stretching it a bit. I think this is a kind of one and done thing, Simon, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I was all pushing for a 20th anniversary for New Who earlier, but yeah, absolutely. You can't mark anything now. Maybe 30 years of New Who, perhaps.
Well, next year is the 30th anniversary of the TV movie.
Oh, well,
always something to celebrate.
Yeah, good point.
As I'm fond of saying, you can join us again. Oh, that will be celebrating next week. We'll be having a good old laugh with more nostalgia, dad jokes, fan art, news, views, and banter, with plenty of hot takes and cold shoulders in between on Type 40 Live. So don't miss that. Oh God! And the comments are still coming too, and the emojis. They've got a party face from Peter Venkman. Thank you. We've got some hearts, and we've got some sleepy faces as well. So we haven't quite sent them to sleep. If
that shot of Billy Piper really rocked the chat, I'll tell you. Oh boy, it did.
You could be right. You could be right. Yeah, happy 20th anniversary to New Doctor Who. Successful. Well, I mean, really successful in bringing in a generation, maybe even two now, of new fans. It would be nice if it didn't stop here, Russell. What are you going to do about it, Russell? It's not Elon Musk's fault, is it, Russell? Pull your fucking finger out, mate. Come on. Okay, so that's it for another one. Happy New Who at 20. Everybody, thank you for your company and all of those comments. We always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40 Live. Of course we do. That'll never change. Yes, so we'll see you in the comments for more. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.